260200, 260201, 260202, 260203, 260204, 260205, 260206, 260208, 260209, 260295, and resolution numbers 260227, 260253, 260254, 260255, and 260256. Ms. Lawhead, will you please call the roll to take attendance?
Councilmember Squilla, Councilmember Gautier, Councilmember Jones, Councilmember Young, Councilmember Driscoll, Councilmember Lozada, Councilmember Bass, Councilmember Phillips, Councilmember O'Neill, Councilmember Gilmore Richardson,
Present.
Councilmember Thomas, Councilmember Harity, Councilmember Ahmed, Councilmember Landau, Councilmember Brooks, Councilmember O'Rourke, Council President Johnson.
Thank you. A quorum of the committee is present, and this hearing is now called to order. Ms. Lawhead, will you please read the title of the bills and the resolutions?
Bill number 260199, an ordinance adopting the operating budget for fiscal year 2027. Bill number 260200, an ordinance to adopt a fiscal year 2027 capital budget. Bill number 260201, an ordinance to adopt a capital program for the 6 fiscal years 2027 through 2032 inclusive. Bill number 260202, an ordinance amending Chapter 19-2400 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Hotel Room Rental Tax by providing for an additional excise tax on hotel room rentals, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 260203, an ordinance amending Subcode A, the Philadelphia Administrative Code of Title IV of the Philadelphia Code, the Building, Construction, and Occupancy Code, by adding, revising Zoning Board of Adjustment fees and provisions regarding hearing scheduling, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 260204, an ordinance amending Title III of the Philadelphia Code entitled Air Management Code to modify the amounts of license and permit fees under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 260205, an ordinance amending Section 19-1806 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Authorization of Realty Use and Occupancy Tax to clarify the imposition of the tax on the use or occupancy of real estate with respect to cell towers, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 260206, an ordinance amending Chapter 600 of the Philadelphia Code Asbestos by adding and revising provisions related to various fees, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 260208, an ordinance amending Chapter 19-1800 of the Philadelphia Code entitled School Tax Authorization to add a new Section 19-1808 entitled Authorization of Rideshare Use Tax to authorize the Board of the School District of Philadelphia to levy a tax upon the use by a passenger of a transportation network company for a prearranged ride that originates in Philadelphia, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 260209, an ordinance amending Title 19 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Finance, Taxes, and Collections to add a new chapter, 194800, entitled Retail Delivery Tax, to establish a tax on orders for the delivery in Philadelphia of retail consumer and other tangible goods, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 260295, an ordinance authorizing and approving the execution and delivery of a service agreement between the city and the Philadelphia Authority of Industrial Development relating to the provision by the Philadelphia Authority of Industrial Development of development assistance to support certain costs related to promoting economic and commercial development of the city, approving the guarantee by the Philadelphia Authority of Industrial Development of certain obligations related to the issuance of a letter of credit to secure the funding of such cost, authorizing and approving the obligation of the city to pay in full when due the service fee and other amounts payable under the service agreement, and covenanting to make the necessary appropriations for such purposes, and authorizing city officials to take necessary or appropriate actions to accomplish the intent and purpose of the ordinance, all under certain terms and conditions. Resolution number 260227, providing for the approval by the Council of the City of Philadelphia of a revised 5-year financial plan for the City of Philadelphia covering fiscal years 2027 through 2031, and incorporating revisions with respect to fiscal year 2026, which is to be submitted by the Mayor to the Pennsylvania Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority, pursuant to an intergovernmental cooperation agreement by and between the city and the authority. Resolution number 260253, appointing Bakir Gunaidan to the Board of the Director of the Old City Special Services District. Resolution number 260254, appointing Felicia Wilson to the Board of the Directors for the Old City Special Services District. Resolution number 260255, appointing Ken Weller to the Board of Directors for the Old City Special Services District. Resolution number 260256, appointing Kaya Gerner to the Board of Directors of the Old City Special Services District.
Thank you. Thank you. Today we will first hear brief testimony and take action on Bill number 260295 regarding the city's bid to host the 2028 Democratic National Convention, as well as Old City Special Services District appointment resolutions. After taking action on the DNC bill and Old City appointment resolutions, we will continue to hear testimony on bills regarding operating and capital spending measures for fiscal year 27, our capital program, and a forward-looking capital plan for fiscal year 2027 through fiscal year 2032. Ms. Lawhead, will you please call the panel to testify on Bill number 260295 regarding the city's bid to host the 2028 Democratic National Convention?
The panel to testify on this bill is Vanessa Garrett Harley, Chief Deputy Mayor, who's also joined by Rob DeVoe, Finance Director, and Jackie Dunn, City Treasurer.
Good morning to each of you. Thank you so much for being here this morning. We ask that you state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning. This is Vanessa Garrett Harley, Chief Deputy Mayor for the City of Philadelphia. Good morning, all council members. With me today is Rob DeVoe, City Finance Director, and the City Treasurer, Jackie Dunn. I'm here to testify in favor of Bill number 260295. The bill would support the city's bid to host the 2028 Democratic National Convention by authorizing the City of Philadelphia to enter into a service agreement with the Philadelphia Authority for Industrial Development, known as PAID. Under this agreement, the city will agree to pay a service fee equal to PAID's obligations if any are incurred. Under the guarantee of the host committee, PIC Pennsylvania, related to a $35 million letter of credit to support the 2028 bid. The city has full confidence in PIC Pennsylvania and its fundraising capabilities, as it is led by Ambassador David L. Cohen, President, and Dan Hilferty, Chair. For the bid, the form of service agreement was submitted as an amendment to this ordinance. In 2016, when Philadelphia last hosted the Democratic National Convention, the city utilized a similar structure, and the city was not required to make any payments under the 2016 guarantee, as the host committee raised the funds it needed. We thank you for your partnership and allowing us to include this bill in today's hearing. I respectfully request a suspension of the rules to allow for first reading at the next meeting of City Council. This concludes my testimony. We are more than happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Vanessa Garrett Harley, and to Rob DeVoe and our City Treasurer, Jackie Dunn. We appreciate you all being here. Also wanted to take the opportunity to thank our Council President for the expeditious scheduling of this hearing, particularly after the PIC Pennsylvania event led by Mayor Sherelle Parker. Of course, must shout out Aaron Wilson and the hard work they are doing in conjunction with David Cohen, Dan Hilferty, Chairman Brady, and others to PIC Pennsylvania. I also wanted to shout out our colleagues here in Council, and Councilwoman Cindy Bass, who serves on the DNC, as well as Councilmember Jim Harity. We thank you both for your national service on our behalf. Very quick question. Just wanted to know how will PAID select the bank to provide the line of credit?
I believe that the selection has been made with Amalgamated Bank, who there is a long partnership with the Democratic National Convention.
And as you stated, we do not draw down on the line of credit. We did not in 2016. Are there any additional costs associated with this at all?
I'm going to defer that question to Rob DeVoe.
No additional costs. Thank you.
Yes, just stating that for the record. So we thank you and we appreciate that work. Are there any additional questions or comments from members of the committee for these witnesses? Okay, Chair recognizes Councilmember Harity.
Thank you. First, want to say sorry I didn't make it out there this time. It's the first one I've missed since I was elected. But I did hear that you guys put up a really nice showing. Heard the party was really good, and heard that you guys were out there lobbying for us. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So, as far as the other cities are concerned, right? Where do you see? Can you just explain why and what you explained to them, the leadership, of why they should come here to Philadelphia rather than go to, say, Georgia or Louisiana or one of the other places?
So Philadelphia has a distinct pleasure of having, we're one of the 5 finalists. I kind of remember the other cities just for memory's sake. I call them the ABCDs. It's Atlanta,
Yep.
Boston, Chicago, Denver, and then Philadelphia. And so what we are trying to explain to them is just how wonderful and great our city is and all the amenities that the city has to offer and what we have that makes us such an attractive destination for conventions and things of the like. We have hotels. Center City, we have a very robust and active Center City area. We have added an additional about 28% of hotel space since the time that we had the Democratic Convention here in 2016. We have a very large and accommodating convention center that is here and very walkable distance to many things. We have, as you'll hear later today, I know SEPTA's hearing us today, we have a very robust public transportation system that can take people in this city from end to end and even out to the counties and other places that we can advertise. The arena is really important. We have the arena district and we have, Xfinity Mobile and all the other areas there. And then when you talk about our cultural institutions and the Parkway, right? I'm saying the Parkway because a lot of our cultural institutions are on the Parkway, just what it looks like from an aesthetic purpose, but we're also the birthplace of democracy. And this is the year to really bring that out. I'm putting in a shameless plug because I'm also head of the special events and the America 250 stuff here in the city, right? But we are the birthplace of democracy. We are where the Declaration of Independence was signed, and we're talking about democracy and bringing the Democratic National Party here, and many of the values that it was founded on is what we argue are the values of the city. Now, while we're talking about the Democratic National Convention, it's not a political thing, certainly not for me. I'm apolitical, believe it or not, and wouldn't even be allowed to be, involved in it because of the city rules if it was political. This is about a civic event and talking to them about the civic education and what it could bring to the city, but the economic impact of having a Democratic National Convention. Baby. Hundreds of millions of dollars could be, made for the city from everything from our restaurants to our hotels. We did talk to them about our now Michelin star restaurants and our, excellent restaurant scene. We have a lot of restaurants. We have nightlife. We have what people would want if they're coming to a convention. And so I'm pretty confident that it will go favorably.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Harity. The chair now recognizes Councilmember Cindy Bass.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning.
Good morning.
It was a pleasure to be with you in New Orleans last weekend.
You as well.
You did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
I think that the city of Philadelphia was well represented. Listen, Patti LaBelle was there.
Absolutely.
Everybody got a picture of Patti LaBelle.
Best.
But it really was something to talk about because, we traveled around in circles and, myself and other members of the representation from Pennsylvania, we traveled around to see, like what the word was from other events that were happening to woo the DNC to their cities. And I have to tell you, hands down, Philadelphia really came out strong. So I really believe that it's going to be Philadelphia. We're very hopeful, but at the same time, the presentation really made us look good. It felt good. People were excited about the possibilities. And I think that we are really a party town. We don't talk about it in that particular way, but we certainly know how to put on an event, a party, a show, activities like this. And for those of us who participated in 2016, we did a phenomenal job. When the Republican committee came here, I think it was 2000 or 2004, came to Philadelphia. That was phenomenal. And it's only gotten better and better every single time that we've done it. And I agree with you, it's not just about one particular party, because even though I'm a member of the DNC, we also want everybody to come out. There's going to be something really for everyone to see and to support and to recognize that this city of Philadelphia is really a special place. So I just really wanted to say kudos on the work that you did. It was really phenomenal. I'm sorry everybody didn't get a chance to see it, but it was really fantastic.
Thank you. Madam Chair, could I just add one thing for the record, I think important to put on about Philadelphia? We also talked, which is a huge deciding factor, about public safety. And that we have a world-class police force. We have a phenomenal commissioner here. Yes. Our police force is very used to handling large events. We've done the Pope, we've done the NFL draft. We are about to do FIFA and MLB and a bunch of other stuff with that. Our officers, we have a very well-respected dignitary affairs unit and, other things. And so the public safety aspect is another huge part of what we are promoting and able to offer.
Yes. Excellent work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Councilmember Bass, and thank you for representing Philadelphia. Are there any additional questions? Okay, great. The chair now recognizes Councilmember Ahmad and then Councilmember Lozada.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, and it's wonderful to hear we're putting our best foot forward. I had a question to do a comparison between what we experienced in 2016 in terms of what it cost the city, and was it a net positive or a negative, given police and all these other things that happened. I know we're not 2016 now, but just to get some idea, the LC is not going to cost us anything, it's just having it there, but the rest of it, the actual operations of putting on that, what did it cost the city in 2016, so we can sort of extrapolate for 2028?
I'm going to ask Rob DeBoer, our finance director, to handle that question.
Yeah, I can't tell you off the top of my head, but we did do analyses back then, so we'll find them and we'll get that through the chair.
So do we know that it cost us, or it was a net?
Oh, it was a net gain.
Net gain,
yeah. If you look at the economic impact.
And that's really the selling point to our people, to say that, we're putting on a big party, and yet we're asking our people to do a lot. We're paying taxes, we're doing this, that, and the other, right, and we're ready for the party. So I just want to make sure that we have all the data to say why we're supporting this, because it's a net gain. It brings in hopefully
right,
new business, all of those things, because we need that information to tell our constituents, why are we asking you to pay more for X, Y, and Z, while we're putting on a party that might cost us, but if it doesn't, then we're happy to say it won't cost us. So thank you, Chair. I think we need that information.
Yeah, you get two things. You get the straight benefit, which is things like hotel rooms, restaurants, all the spending from delegates, but you also get to be on an international stage and show the city off, which then helps bring in business for years to come. Just to make sure I'm on the record. I'm supportive of this. I just want to have enough information so that we can answer questions that'll surely come our way.
Understood. And if I could, I do have one data point that would answer her question.
Please share the data point with Councilmember Ahmad, and then I'd like to recognize, please allow me to recognize Councilmember Bass for a point of information.
Thank you. Yeah. I just really wanted to go back to Rob DeBoer's point in terms of generating additional tourism dollars for the city of Philadelphia in the future. And so I'm not sure exactly what the numbers are, even though I'm sure that they're, in the positive. But I can tell you this, as someone who's been to every Democratic convention that's been had since about '96. And I can tell you that some of these cities are not easy to move around in. And just as a consumer, it made me say, I don't particularly want to go back there. Nice city, not a bad place, but it's very difficult to move around. And when you're moving large numbers of people, you need a transportation network. You need to be able to have the infrastructure in place. And a lot of these other places don't have what Philadelphia has. And I think that that makes it a place that people will come for the DNC, but also want to come back and spend their tourism dollars in the future. So thank you, Madam President.
And if I could, just in terms of the data point, I will make sure that every council member gets a copy of kind of the one-pager that has a lot of facts that you could share with your constituents from PIC, Pennsylvania. But the 2016 Democratic National Convention, the economic impact that went to the city was $230 million. And we expect to do as well, probably better.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councilmember Ahmad. The chair now recognizes Councilmember Lozada.
I think good morning, thank you for being with us. I think
morning.
Councilmember Bass just made the point of information clear, right? We need a transportation center that is going to be able to support mass groups of people so that the economic opportunity that these conventions bring to our city are spread across neighborhoods. I guess my concern and my question is, and we'll hear from SEPTA later on this morning, but how are we working as we continue to attract these groups into our city? How are we working with our transit system to ensure public safety, rides that are, favorable, that are welcoming? We struggle every day on the Market Frankfurt line. Many of my staff take public transportation to work every day, and it is a daily struggle. And so how are we preparing our mass transit system to be able to respond appropriately to these groups so that, like Member Bass said, when they leave after the convention, they choose to bring their personal families back to visit our city?
Absolutely. I will say this, and then I will leave it to the experts, and even we can provide you with a written response if you'd like it, more detailed. But we certainly value our partnerships with SEPTA and their leadership, very much including them. We have our site visit, which will be coming to the city of Philadelphia April 29th through May 1st. That kind of a question you just asked is one of the things certainly those folks who are coming to town will be definitely drilling down on, but our SEPTA partners will be in our Philadelphia Police Department, as well as our Office of Emergency Management, and everybody else will be working very closely together so that we can ensure the safety of everyone that comes here, as well as the safety of our residents as we, take that extremely seriously. But I can get you a more detailed answer if you want, but it would be better coming from the public safety experts who are handling that part of it.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councilmember Lozada. Are there any additional questions for these witnesses? Seeing none, we thank you all very much for being here this afternoon. We look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We will now hear testimony regarding the Old City Special Services appointment resolutions. Ms. Lawhead, will you please call the witness to testify on these resolutions?
Job Itzkowitz, Executive Director, Old City Special Services District.
Excellent. Thank you very much for being here. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning, Madam Chair Gilmore Richardson and all members of council. My name is Job Itzkowitz. I'm the Executive Director of the Old City Special Services District. I'm here to testify in support of resolution numbers 260253, 260254, 260255, 260256, respectively appointing Bakir Goodnighten, Felicia Wilson, Ken Weller, and Kaya Kerner to the board of the Old City Special Services District. I've submitted written testimony, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Look forward to working with you as always. We thank you for being here this morning. Are there any questions or comments from members of the committee for this witness? Any questions or comments for this witness? Seeing none, we thank you very much for joining us here this morning.
Thank you very much.
There being no further questions from members of the committee and no other witnesses on the list to testify, I will ask if there is anyone else present in this hearing who wishes to offer testimony on bills number 260295 and resolution numbers 260253, 260254, 260255, and 260256. Hearing none, I want to thank all of the witnesses for their participation today. We value your opinion. We will now go into our public meeting to consider the action to be taken on Bill number 260295 and resolutions numbers 260253, 260254, 260255, and 260256. Ms. Lawhead, will you please call the roll and take attendance?
Councilmember Squilla, Councilmember Gautier, Councilmember Jones, Councilmember Young, Councilmember Driscoll, Councilmember Lozada, Councilmember Bass, Councilmember Phillips, Councilmember O'Neill, Councilmember Gilmore Richardson,
Present.
Councilmember Thomas, Councilmember Harity, Councilmember Ahmed, Councilmember Landau, Councilmember Brooks, Councilmember O'Rourke, Council President Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here. We recognize the presence of a quorum. The chair now recognizes the meeting will be at ease. Thank you so much. The chair now recognizes Councilmember Phillips for a motion on Bill number 260295.
Thank you, Ms. Chairman. I move that Bill number 260295 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
The chair notes for the record that Councilmember Harity seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that Bill number 260295 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor will indicate by stating aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Bill number 260295 will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, with a request that the rules of council be suspended as to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. The chair now recognizes Councilmember Phillips for a motion on resolutions numbers 260253, 260254, 260255, and 260256.
Thank you, Majority Leader Chair Gilmore Richardson. I move that resolutions number 260253, 260254, 260255, 260256 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
The chair notes for the record that Councilmember Harity seconds the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that resolutions numbers 260253, 260254, 260255, and 260256 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit first reading of these resolutions at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will indicate by stating aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it, and resolution numbers 260253, 260254, 260255, and 260256 will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, with a request for suspension of the rules to permit consideration of these resolutions at our next session of council. We will now go back into the hearing and take testimony on the fiscal year 27 budget bills.
We will now continue to hear testimony on bills regarding operating and capital spending measures for fiscal year 2027, a capital program, and a forward-looking capital plan for fiscal year 2027 through fiscal year 2032. Ms. Lawhead, will you please call the first panel to testify?
Scott Sauer, General Manager for SEPTA.
How you doing, Scott? How are you?
Thank you. I'm fine, Council President. Appreciate it.
Always good to see you. If you could just state your name for the record and also your team that will be joining you for questioning from members of City Council. Before you get started, I was looking for Wendy Harvey Cream.
I think Wendy is waiting for the team. We were rerouted through the entrance into City Hall. So.
Okay. All right. We just want to go on record and just acknowledge her hard work in keeping the lines of communication regarding all things SEPTA, as well as Pam McCormick on the state level, keeping us abreast on all things SEPTA as we advocate and fight for funding for mass transit on a state level, as well as we continue to advocate and address the issues regarding the SEPTA bus revolution plan and making sure it's integrated to our councilmatic districts in a smooth, seamless fashion, and also your leadership for being courage under fire as we address about a year ago the lack of permanent funding on the state budget, and working with our Governor Josh Shapiro on the General Assembly for the flex dollars that we did receive on 2 separate occasions to keep our city moving forward, particularly during this year, which is 2026, and we need not have any type of disruption to our transportation system during this period as we celebrate the birthplace of America, and there are several different events that will be here during this time. So with that being said, Scott, just state your name for the record and please begin, and also acknowledge your team that's here for the lines of questioning as well.
Certainly, and thank you for that. My name is Scott Sauer, S-A-U-E-R, and I'm the General Manager of SEPTA. Good morning, Council President Johnson, Transportation and Public Utilities Committee Chair Driscoll, and members of City Council. I'm joined today at my right by SEPTA's Chief of Transit Police, Charles Lawson, and momentarily my team will be joining me. I have representatives from across SEPTA's various divisions and departments representing everything from finance to planning to operations and engineering. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on SEPTA's budget request as part of the City of Philadelphia's fiscal year 2027 budget process. I'm grateful for the Council's partnership, thoughtful input, and steadfast advocacy for transit funding. Today, I am pleased to share how we are using the city's support to invest in safety, service, our workforce, and the long-term future of the system. The City of Philadelphia's proposed $134 million contribution is essential. It enables SEPTA to meet its legislatively mandated requirement to secure local matching funds, unlocking nearly $1 billion in state operating support. Importantly, the city's 5-year commitment of nearly $900 million positions SEPTA to fully leverage additional funding anticipated under the governor's proposed statewide transit funding plan. The mayor's budget proposal would also maintain 2 critical partnerships: the city's participation in SEPTA's Key Advantage program and its Zero Fare program. Together, these initiatives expand access to public transportation for city employees and low-income residents, advancing our shared goal of connecting people to jobs, education, and opportunity. We're also grateful for the Council's continued support of other shared priorities, including the new bus network implementation, bus and trolley prioritization and lane enforcement, and service and capital initiatives that we are undertaking in the communities you represent. Much of my testimony last year focused on SEPTA's fiscal crisis and the difficult choices we faced to address our budget deficit. Action we took last September redirecting funds dedicated to future SEPTA capital projects to fund operations, helped reverse service cuts and stabilize SEPTA's operating budget for 2 years through June of 2027. Without any mechanism to replace those funds, this one-time fix carries long-term consequences for how SEPTA can serve the city and the region in the future. Temporary fixes are not a substitute for a sustainable funding solution. We are continuing to work with the governor and our regional legislative delegation to advance dedicated statewide transit funding. And I want to thank the members of City Council for their advocacy on behalf of SEPTA. The city's proposed investment comes at a critical moment. Like Philadelphia itself, SEPTA is building on renewed momentum, and we are using this period of relative stability to focus on the fundamentals of our mission: safety, reliability, cleanliness, accountability, and putting our customer first. That focus is producing measurable results. Today, SEPTA provides approximately 800,000 daily trips across bus, subway, and regional rail. Through July 2025, we achieved 51 consecutive months of year-over-year ridership growth. And despite several major snowstorms this winter, ridership has returned following an operationally challenging fourth quarter last year. Those who are riding see an improved system. Our most recent rider survey showed improvement across all categories. Serious crime is at historically low levels, supported by the largest uniformed transit police force in more than a decade. Following a 33% reduction in serious crime in 2024, the largest one-year decline in SEPTA's history, safety improved further in 2025. Preliminary data from the first quarter this year shows an additional 30% decrease compared to the same period last year. Targeted enforcement and infrastructure improvements are also making a difference. New fare gates and transit police deployments have reduced fare evasion by 10% this year. Fare evasion rates at the 10 stations that have full-height fare gates have dropped between 37% and 75%. Based on that success, we are moving forward with plans to install the new gates at another 13 stations. Expanded transit police staffing is allowing us to deploy new transit police patrols on the B and L trains. Following federal emergency orders issued last fall, regional rail and trolley operations have rebounded, and we are working to build the culture needed to improve safety and reliability moving forward. Our skilled and dedicated workforce is ready for the additional demands that will be placed on the system to fully support the city and the region during the World Cup, the nation's semi-quincentennial, the Major League Baseball All-Star Game, and the many other events planned in the region this year. And with temporary funding in place, we are advancing the phased implementation of the new bus network, which takes a major step forward today with 2 public hearings on the fiscal year 2027 annual service plan that will guide the initial phases. This year of transition is reflected in the operating and capital budgets we released last week. Through cost containment and operational improvements, SEPTA has achieved approximately $30 million in recurring annual savings. Increased revenues from advertising, parking, and investments has further strengthened our financial position. As a result, our projected structural deficit has been reduced from $213 million in fiscal year 2026 to $192 million in fiscal year 2027. The budget also exposes the tenuous status of the authority's capital program. SEPTA faces a $10 billion state of good repair backlog, including the oldest rail vehicle fleet in the nation that must be replaced. To address critical infrastructure needs, we anticipate borrowing $4.3 billion over the next 12 years just to advance essential replacement and repairs. This increased reliance on debt will constrain future flexibility and limit our ability to fully meet long-term system needs. Despite these challenges, the progress of the past year demonstrates that SEPTA can deliver for our riders and the communities we serve. As we work to secure a sustainable funding solution, we are also investing time and resources to develop our vision for what SEPTA can be. Across the authority, employees are helping develop SEPTA's next strategic plan, built around 5 core priorities: putting customers first, investing in an engaged and supported workforce, securing stable, long-term funding, practicing strong fiscal stewardship, and modernizing our infrastructure and technology. With adequate funding, this plan will serve as the roadmap for the authority's next 5 years, guiding organizational decisions while establishing clear accountability for results. I'm committed to leading SEPTA through this next phase, one that moves the authority beyond recovery and toward a best-in-class future. And I look forward to continuing that work with City Council in achieving that goal. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today in support of SEPTA's fiscal year 2027 operating budget request. I appreciate the continued support of Council and welcome your questions.
Thank you very much. And before I get started, I see she has arrived. Again, I want to publicly acknowledge Wendy Harvey Green for her hard work and her dedication. Thank you. I want to also welcome Hugh Allen to the SEPTA team. I know Hugh from doing this work since I've been a state representative, so you have a fine gentleman who's a hard worker joining Team SEPTA. So welcome, Hugh. Always good to see you. I just want to take a moment to just ask you a couple questions. First, I want to acknowledge the work of our council member, Nicholas O'Rourke, for advocating for additional funds for the SEPTA Key program and 04. Thank you for your leadership, making sure those most in need has a chance to participate in taking advantage of SEPTA and all the opportunities that it provides to have our great transit system, utilize our great transit system here in the city of Philadelphia. So I want to personally just thank you for your hard work and your advocacy around it. When we went to Harrisburg as a group, as a body, and we talked to different members of the House and the Senate, but primarily the Senate, just to get their feedback, and most importantly, lobbying them for advocacy, for support, for permanent funding for transit. A couple things would come up in the midst of our conversations that we would have to clarify with them around the issue of public safety, right? And we know that our numbers are down, but I think for some apparent reason, there's a perception that our numbers are up. So could you just take us to where our numbers are? 2, what are we doing regarding fare evasion? And 3, in terms of our police force, are we growing? And if we are growing, at what rate in terms of how we're addressing public safety? And the last part is, I remember a couple budget sessions ago, you and your team came and talked about, separate from the law enforcement aspect, we were also dealing with issues regarding behavioral health, drug addiction, homelessness, to address the quality of life issues that really isn't a part of, I would say, the total operation of SEPTA, but you haven't cured it as a result of you running your business. And so could you touch on those 4 things, please?
Yeah, certainly. And I'll take a little bit of it, and I'll have the chief kind of chime in with me. Strategically, safety and security is essentially the highest, it's the highest value that we have at SEPTA, and we want to keep safety and security at the forefront. We have made tremendous progress over the last several years at reducing crime on the system, increasing our ability to engage with those most vulnerable riders, and at the same time, increasing the ranks of our police department. We've made several strategic decisions along the way that have resulted in success in all areas, primarily increasing the ranks of our police officers. We made several decisions a few years ago, worked with the Transit Police Union on pay increases, shrinking the time it takes for an officer to reach the top rate, in making the Transit Police Department a much more attractive option for those folks who want to enter law enforcement. We were able to do that, and we saw some dividends almost immediately in officers who had left the Transit Authority to pursue other law enforcement options, returning to SEPTA. In addition, we have been successfully recruiting. We run two classes a year in the Municipal Police Academy, and we have placed double-digit numbers of students in that police academy every single time since about 2022. One of the key changes that we made in that time frame, of course, was promoting Chief Lawson Chief Lawson is a lifetime police officer for SEPTA and has risen through the ranks, taken a similar path, much like I have, to achieve my standing at the authority. And the chief rose through the ranks, and he brought credibility with him into his position that we needed in that position. And he's been able to motivate and attract recruits into the Transit Police Department. And I'd like to turn it to the chief to talk about your strategies and the numbers as we see them today.
Yeah, so thank you for the question. Thanks, Scott, for that feedback. As Scott said, our staffing numbers have risen for the last 3 years. They're as high as they've been in 12 or 15 years, where our staffing level at present rate is 96.5% of our budgeted headcount. And I've gotten a commitment from the authority that when I reach that budgeted headcount, I don't have to stop hiring. So we are going to continue to hire police officers for as long as we can do so. So that has paid big dividends, right? Like Scott mentioned, the historic lows that we're seeing right now in crime. And they are historic. I've been with the organization for 34 years, and we are seeing crime rate as low as I've seen in my entire time in this police department. So that work is being done. We're having a lot of success with our strategies. The more difficult challenge is the behavioral health issues that you mentioned, right? And it is a more difficult challenge because we don't have the same tools for long-term success as we have. We can't arrest our way out of it. Many of these issues that we're dealing with are non-criminal issues at all. And yet I have a police force of 200 officers that are kind of trying to address this with limited tools and resources to affect long-term change. But they're doing a great job. Last year, my team engaged in more than 200,000 engagements with that community last year, moving the bulk of those folks off. We're having limited success in finding long-term connection to resources, connection to addiction treatment programs, right? We're just not seeing that right now. But we're moving this community out of the system. We're enforcing a code of conduct. We're enforcing safety issues. And so we're having limited success with non-long-term tools.
What's the name of before y'all came here, maybe 2 budgets, maybe 3 budgets ago, and you had a gentleman who had a whole operation that supplemented the police. 'Cause your job is police, right? But y'all had somebody else who's strictly responsible for the behavioral health issues, the drug addiction issues, and the homelessness issues. So all of it wouldn't be on just the police. So where's that? I don't remember his name, but I remember the presentation. And is he still a part of this current operation?
Yes, so the person you're referring to is Ken Divers. Ken retired from the authority, I think the end of 24, early 25. That program still exists. It resides.
What's the name of it?
Scope.
Scope, that's what
yes.
it was. Yes.
Safety, cleaning, ownership, partnership, engagement. And that program was, as you described, designed to remove the responsibility from police officers. So that program still exists. We are in a transition phase. When we came to you last year, we talked about we were moving away from some of the existing providers that we had partnerships with. We have a request for proposals that's out on the street today to re-engage with new providers, but we also have partnerships with local mental health and addiction specialists that are helping us. We have a woman, Teresa White, who runs that program within the police department, and so we've married the two components together to give it structure and better strategies for how we deploy officers, how we deploy specialists to engage with these with the most vulnerable that are on the system.
But in the meanwhile, while you go through the transition and the RFP is out there, I guess what I like to say is a gap in between, because on one end, Captain is saying we're making limited progress. In order to make sure we're having more than limited progress, we would have to have that RFP responded to, and then the whole operation gets started where the police have an opportunity to police, and then hopefully it will be a team like it was before going on, more than likely it's a sub in the L as compared to the buses, just checking on what's going on from a quality of a person's experience who's getting on the bus in the L. Would that be correct?
Yes, so yes, while we've transitioned between the two contracts, the bulk of the interactions has fallen either on the police department or on the limited partnerships that we have. So part of the redeployment of police resources to the trains that we recently did was to address some of those quality of ride issues that you're speaking of today. And that is folks who are riding with no destination, who need help, they need resources. And so our police officers are engaging those folks and offering those resources while helping them to move through the system. But yes, all that is happening within the police department.
Question for the captain, and I'll turn it over to my members. How often, like, what does a day look like for officers who actually frequently check in from railroad car to railroad car on the L and the subway? And the reason why I ask that question is because I do get individuals reaching out saying, I was on my way to work today. I know my staff probably hear me because he was one of them. And I was on my way to work and people getting high on the train. People getting high on the L. And I have to deal with this while I'm on the train and while I'm on the L, right? So I'm like, okay. And remember, you know, I have people come down council and say, oh, SEPTA at the end of the day, like it's this magical thing we need to be a part of, where I didn't grow up with a car in my household. To be quite frank with you, everybody inside this room, the transit mode of every day was SEPTA. It was the 29, it was the famous 17 bus to this day, right? The 7 bus growing up in South Philly, but also I know that Broad Street line by the back of my hand, so it's nothing new to me to know the train station particularly from Patterson Avenue, and because I'm from South Philly, we pretty much used to stop at City Hall. But I know under Walnut Street, you know, as a kid, ride my bike under there, but that's a different conversation, right? But so I know it back and forth, right? And as well as the Frankfurt line, because we used to go to the mall, Frankfurt Mall back in the day. You would take the L to Martha Orthodox coming from South Philadelphia. But I understand it's a very different experience today than it was back then. I know a key aspect is that visibility of their police presence to try to tell folks, like, you're not going to get high, you're not going to rob, you're not going to do all those things to tear down the quality of life. And you have a choice to make. Either you straighten up and get in line, or you will not be on this transit system, because you got children that's on these buses and on the L. You have seniors, and so I think a couple bad apples, you know, I'm going to call a spade have to be dealt with on behalf of the interests of everybody else who's good, law-abiding transit riders. So we're not going to help the people that's on there doing wrong. And if you need mental health issues support, we will provide mental health support, but you will not disturb, you know, my little nieces and nephews who are getting on the subway and on the L, period. And I don't apologize for that approach at all.
Yeah, so, you know, the success that we've had with serious crime on the system has really allowed us to turn the full weight of our attention to those quality of life issues. Serious crime is not happening largely on the train, right? So we were spending a lot of time off the train, focusing on serious crime. Now that we have that under control, all of our time is being spent on trains. I'll give you an example of a weekly report that we run. Last week, 200 train runs, 1,100 hours of patrol, just cops on trains. And that's what they're doing. They're enforcing largely our code of conduct, right? So smoking, open containers of alcohol, taking up more than one seat, these issues that are really not criminal in nature, but they lose their ride, and that's exactly our approach. And so you lost your ride. Some of these issues result in a 24-hour ban, and so we ban them for the day. depending on how serious the infraction was. But that's been our approach. We've been seeing that translate into a little better feedback from our customer, right? This is a fairly new plan. We've been doing this for about a month, but we're already seeing results from it.
And how are we dealing with, I think we're better than New York, but they have this ride fare, not ride fare, what is it called? Fare evasion equipment, where you try to, hop the turnstile. Well, they used to have the bars down the bottom, that's about this big, but you try to jump the turnstile to get on the train for free. Where are we in terms of modern technology to actually stop individuals who think it's okay to ride the train for free?
So we've completed installation of full-height fare gates with full-height doors, like saloon-style doors. They are much harder, much more difficult to defeat. It's not to say they're impenetrable, because there's still opportunities there that we have to address. But we've installed these gates at 10 locations, 10 stations already, including City Hall Station. If you've been through City Hall Station, they have made a tremendous difference. We've seen fare evasion at those stations drop off anywhere from 40 to 75%. In the budget that we're proposing this year, we are proposing to install those at 13 more stations, which will assist in those areas. But then there's also a project that we're undertaking, which we'll introduce later this year, to try to harden the existing turnstile infrastructure. While we can't get the full height fare gates at every location right away, we can harden some of the infrastructure that we have to make it more difficult for folks to not pay their fare. And where we couple that with the chief's police deployment, which even presses down on that number even further. The chief's police officers have issued thousands of citations to folks who are fare evading. We always give them a chance to go back out and come back through on a fare, but if they insist, then the police will issue a citation.
All right, and last but not least, how are we protecting our SEPTA workers who are on the buses? How do we deal with the local 234 type of issues where the SEPTA drivers are pretty much doing their job, but a lot of times they have to deal with a variety of different things that really has nothing to do with them, but it just comes with the job of them being a SEPTA bus driver.
Yeah, so
where we're going to put the plastic shield that will be around the actual bus drivers to keep them safe,
right?
Hopefully bulletproof.
Yes, so there's several modifications we've made structurally to the bus to protect the operator. So the shield that you're speaking of, so we have evolved from a 3/4 type shield that they can retract on demand. We've now introduced a fully encapsulated driver compartment where the shield now goes from the rear of the operator all the way to near the window. It's very difficult for someone who wants to get back there to do it. Simultaneously, we've enhanced the communications for operators. They have silent alarms that they can trigger to get police response. That silent alarm would automatically go into our control center. The control center can see where the vehicle is by GPS. It opens an ambient mic. We can listen. The police have capabilities now to look in live through the camera system. We have also created or modified the bus to include an emergency egress window to the operator's left. There's not a door there, so the operator would technically be trapped should they not be able to exit through the same door that the customers use. Now the operator could, in an emergency, get out through that window. So we've made a number of modifications to the bus itself. We are still looking at bullet-resistant glass. That glass does present some engineering challenges for us because it's very heavy. So we're still working through those challenges. But the full encapsulation and the enhanced communications have been pretty well received, and we have worked hand in hand with Local 234 to develop these ideas as we've gone along. I'll let the chief, if you don't mind, the chief has strategies he's used to address buses and trolleys as well.
Yeah, so we created, for the first time a year ago, we created a unit within the police department that focused nothing but our surface transportation. We've never had that in the past. That group has been instrumental in reducing crime on buses, 16% last year, but they've also reduced assaults on our bus operators, physical assaults on the operators. Not only is it coming down, but they've given, that allows now the surface group and our operators and that team, a specific leadership team to work with in the police department that addresses nothing but their issues.
Okay. I just want to recommend that you and your team show these updates to Senator McCormick. I'm sorry, not McCormick, Senator Pittman. Well, you can do McCormick as well so we can get some of that federal funding as well. But I would have that conversation with Senator McCormick and a variety of different senators who pretty much have final say on the budget in Harrisburg and show that, one, our numbers reflect that we are making progress. Two, these are things that we're addressing regarding fare evasion. And three, here's the strategy regarding, well, not even just the strategy, the progress we have been making in terms of safety of the ridership as well as those who operate all of our buses and trains. I just think that goes a long way when we're doing our advocacy up there and we're fighting. That was direct conversation that they would have. That was the reason they would come up with why they couldn't support us. Whether we want to believe it or not, they're the ones in power that's going to approve the budget. So we have to make our case to them that what they may think is the case isn't necessarily the case. And here's the facts and here's the progress that we are making as a transit authority. With that being said, the chair recognizes Councilmember Majority the Captain Gilmore Richardson, then Chair of Transportation Mike Driscoll, and then Councilmember Rue Landau and Kendra Brooks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Council President, and thank you, Scott Sauer and your entire team. We appreciate the work that you all continue to do on our behalf. Chief Lawson, Michael Carroll, all the SEPTA board members led by Board Chair Ken Lawrence, Wendy Green Harvey, thank you for always being there for all of our calls and requests, and also to the new bus network team for your collaboration. I'm going back a couple of years now, but I wanted to say thank you again. Based on the work with the new bus network, and I know that there were several iterations and now you're ready to proceed with this new bus network, can you provide an update on the implementation and how you all will be working to ensure all riders, but especially the ones that are hard to reach, like our seniors, our students, working parents, will be notified about the bus network changes?
Sure, thank you for that. And so today we are kicking off our first hearing for the annual service plan, which is highlighting, of course, the new bus network. And so a couple things that we learned. Actually, we learned a great deal last year during the phases of the service cuts that we were implementing as a result of our budget issues. And as we were going through that process, we deployed staff actually out to bus stops to talk to riders on the ground where they live, waiting for our service. And what we found is that really made a difference in folks' ability to understand what we were doing. As you well know, the service cuts was a drastic change from what people were accustomed to, even well beyond what we're doing on the new bus network. So we really wanted to make sure that people understood what those changes meant for them and their daily commute. And by getting out in the field with riders at the bus stop, really made a difference. So we have taken that lesson and applied it as we move through the new bus network. So the bus network is going to be implemented in several phases for the next 18 to 24 months. And so what we're taking each phase as kind of an implementation process, a means to get out and talk to the folks. And since most of the phases work regionally within the network, we're able to target specific areas of the city and the region to talk to them about what's changing in that phase. So we don't have to really inundate them with all of it all at once. I mean, it's great if they want to know it and that information will be available, but when we're out talking about changes, generally we're going to talk to people about the changes that they're going to see every day because it's their bus route, it's their rail route, and it's going to change their connections and that sort of thing. So we are talking to them about that as the phases go. We've already done a number of town halls and a number of open houses before today in advance of the first implementation phase, which starts in August.
And I'm sure with the bus operators as well. Shout out to TWU 234.
Yes, and thank you for that, but yes, absolutely. So we have spoken, of course, with TW's leadership and going depot by depot to talk to the operators about what's happening in their depot. Because some of these changes obviously are happening on a depot by depot basis.
Right.
And that was some of the feedback I got last year during the cuts. As I was going depot to depot, talking about what was happening, they were bringing me to the board and showing me how their routes were changing. So that we took those lessons back and are applying those to the new bus network implementation as well. So yes, so we're trying to address every stakeholder, including council, including our county leaders as well, to make sure that everybody is well informed and that we can answer their questions well before implementation actually occurs.
Okay, that'll be great. I heard the bell and I honor the clock, but I just wanted to put on the record, please continue to send us the information. We receive it from Wendy. That we can share with our constituents and our e-newsletters. We're already getting the information, but continue to send it to us so we can get it out to our board of constituencies that we represent. I will submit questions for written response due to time limitations relative to the repurposing of the capital dollars in that timeline, and also what you all have budgeted for capital funding. And what percentage of those funds you encumber each year, what percentage you actually spend. And then also on the revenue side around passenger revenue and sort of what you anticipate from a budget perspective on passenger revenue moving forward, particularly starting with 2026. I'll submit those questions for a written response, but just wanted to say thank you for your continued work and advocacy and working together with this body, with Council President, our Chair of Transportation, in advocating on behalf of Philadelphia in Harrisburg. So thank you very much for that work. And I have to say this too, Prez brought this up around riding the bus, and I still call the Broad Street bus the C bus, okay? I think it's 4 now, but I think it's the C. It was the C when I was in high school. I'm just gonna be honest, completely honest, and I usually don't even, do this on the record. I don't like the new LBT. I don't like that because I think that you all are trying to make SEPTA more so like the New York bus system. So I get it, L, the Market Frankfurt L, so L, B for Broad Street. I get it, right? But to me, it looks like New York. And I think we have to be cognizant of the fact that we are Philadelphia and we need to keep the character of our city at the forefront of the work that we do. So I just wanted to mention that for the team and the staff on the back end, and I know you all got upset with me about this last time, who may or may not be from Philadelphia, who may or may not be born and raised here, to remember the cultural and historical significance of what our transit system means to us. It doesn't have to look like, everything doesn't have to look like New York City. We are Philadelphia. Thank you.
Fair enough.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Chair recognizes Councilmember Mike Driscoll, Chair of Transportation.
Thank you, Mr. President, and welcome, Chief. Welcome, Scott. And Scott, I appreciate that 5-step plan that you've outlined. Appreciate that. But I want to ask something before I get into my questions. You're not new to SEPTA. You've been there a long time, both of you. And with all your experience, what is your vision for SEPTA going forward?
Sure, thank you for that. Last year we talked a lot about what SEPTA will be if we are not funded. And so as we shifted away from that, even though it's a temporary solution, I wanted to shift the language, and I want to talk about what SEPTA can be if we are funded. If we get a permanent funding solution and we do all the things that we want to do with SEPTA, the things that our customers and that council wants us to do, this is what we can be. And what that vision looks like is it looks like a system that is modern. It runs frequent, reliable service. It's service that will arrive regardless of whether you have a printed timetable in your hand or a digital timetable on your electronic device, that I can just show up at the street corner and I know that bus will arrive within 15 minutes, or I know that that train will arrive within 15 minutes. I want a system that our workforce is well-trained, highly skilled, that they are attentive to our customers' needs, and that they know what's expected of them and that they perform to that expectation every single day. A system that is clean, a system that folks can get in and be proud of, that they'll bring visitors from other cities or other countries, and that we don't have to try to spruce up in order to meet that demand, that we're already there. It's kind of the same approach you would want to have in your own home, where I don't want to have to clean my home just because somebody dropped by. I want to be clean and ready to receive company anytime I need it. I want that for the people that use it every day. I want that for visitors. In order to get there, we have to change the way we do business internally. So I need a leadership team that is responsive and that is meeting needs and looking ahead strategically. And that's the point of this strategic business plan initiative. It's the point of the vision document, is to show what SEPTA can be. We have a real opportunity because over the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to have at least 3 modern rail fleets coming onto the property. The trolleys, the Market Frankford line, and the Silver Liner 6s. We have an opportunity to fast forward into the 21st century in a way that SEPTA's never done before. We've never procured 3 major rail fleets all at once the way we're going to try to do. And we still have to do the Broad Street line. So we still have ways to go, but in 5 to 10 years, it's going to happen whether we like it or not, and we have to be ready for it. And all means all the infrastructure. I want to have a system where our platforms are all high level on regional rail. I want to be able to board and alight as quickly as we can. I don't want to be compared to Europe and Asia and be told, how come you guys can't be like them? I want people to say, hey, you got to ride in Philly because that's the way their system is. I want to be better than New York City. I don't want to be New York City any more than the council member wants to be New York City. I want New York City to look at Philadelphia and say, we want to be like Philly. So that's our vision, and we have a path to get there.
Zohan is offering free bus rides, though, so, I mean, zero fare is great, but he's talking about all free, like just get on the bus and...
We don't need Zohan. We have Mayor Parker. We don't need Zohan.
No, that's right. Say it again. One city. So,
That's what I want for SEPTA, and that's what I want for Philly.
Well, I think that's what we want too, so we appreciate you articulating that. Real quick, Mr. President, a couple questions. To follow up on your question, there's full height fare gates. You said that maybe between 45 and 70% we're achieving that. Can you translate, not necessarily for today, can you translate that into real revenue projections for us?
So we were projecting, we were losing about $50 million annually in fare evasion. Now that's system-wide. So if you just annotate that into just those individual stations, assuming that say 1,000 people come through that station and they're all paying, for the sake of round numbers, let's call it $3. That's $3,000. That's $3,000. So if we were missing 50% of that revenue, and now we've reduced that 50% number to say 25%, that's a significant savings. Station by station, and some of those stations are much busier than others. City Hall Station, for example, where the gates have been going in. I mean, that's the hub of the wheel, if you will. So we are seeing tremendous, system-wide fare evasion has dropped by about 10%. Now, that takes into account also that our fares went up last year, so the raw number might be higher, but 10% fewer people are evading the fare system-wide. And at those stations, half, sometimes 3/4 fewer are evading the fare, thanks in large part to the infrastructure hardening plus the attention that the transit police gives.
To tell you, this is why I think it's very important, and Council President and the folks who went to Harrisburg with us last budget season, the Republican Senate kept harping on that those opportunities that we're not recovering. So as we look at giving you more money to increase those stations, I think that's important in this budget that we can go back to them and say, we hear you and we are doing something about that. Real quick, can you tell us about, I know with Silver Line, you had to do all those, and you were under tremendous pressure. Where are we at with all that?
So the really good news is we had a target of getting back to daily about 200 Silverliners back in service every day. And we have achieved that. The number drops off from time to time because we are very cautious with the equipment, but every day we put out roughly between 180 and 200 Silverliners, and that was our goal. 223 was the fleet of Silverliner 4s. We were able to achieve all the inspections, we were able to achieve all the repairs, but for about 10 cars that are sitting out with long lead time items. But we were able to achieve that in short order. Now, we didn't do a good job, and that's what got us into that mess. But what we have done systematically over the last 6 months is we've changed the leadership of that organization within SEPTA. We've changed our approach. We've added standard operating procedures. We've added more training. And the best part of it is our workforce really stepped up. They gave us so much time and effort over the course of those 3 or 4 months to get us back to a place where at least now we can show better reliability. There are still going to be days when our regional rail customers may have to board a train that only has 2 cars. But every day we shoot to have 3 and 4 car consists on the trains every day. And we continue to aim for that goal. We can't say it'll be perfect. It won't be perfect until we get a new fleet. This is an old fleet. It needs some real TLC, and that's what we're going to do for it, at least for the foreseeable future, until the new fleet begins to arrive. But we're there. We are in a much better place today than we were even back in January.
Well, thanks to your team for that. I know you were working around the clock. Appreciate that. So pre-pandemic to now, where are we at in ridership?
So we've shown about a growth over the last 4 years every single month, but for a couple months at the end of last year with the difficulties we were having. But overall, we are showing about 80%, close to 80% of what we were prior to the pandemic. We're still running only about 90% of the service that we ran prior to the pandemic. So we are still growing. We saw growth last month. We're back into a growth phase again, coming away from the regional rail issues. So we're back into a growth phase. We have very aggressive ideas on how to grow ridership through the Key Advantage program, as the city is part of, through Zero Fare, through other fare, more ridership-focused programs to try to lure in. The best advertising for getting people back on SEPTA is to improve our service. And that's what we have to do, and that's what our goal is as we push through every single day, is to improve the service, make it reliable, make it safe, make it clean, and that's what will bring people back. When our customers get out and talk to people and say, hey, I ride SEPTA every day, I don't have any problems, it's always okay. That's the best advertising we can have, and that's what we shoot for. Our customer surveys all show that the people who are riding, the people who respond to our surveys, are seeing improvement. They've also seen places that we can do better. That's how we're going to grow ridership, and that is what our goal is to get back to 100% and beyond. We were growing until about 2013, and then over the years, ridership started to dip. There were a lot of factors why that is. People were, remote work was a thing even before 2020, but it was generally 1 day a week, and we saw that on Fridays. We saw that dip on Fridays. So we saw where things were starting to tinker off. The rideshare, introduction of rideshare, TNCs, that we took a hit on that as well. We are trying to recover that ridership. We're trying to do it in ways that make the system more attractive. The new bus network, trolley modernization, all the things that we're doing to try to speed up bus service, the AI cameras, the enforcement cameras, the dedicated bus lanes, they were all part of a strategy to get people back on the system. And all the things we've done for bus service has actually shown bus ridership to grow faster than our other modes. Bus service is almost all the way back, and that's really encouraging. So we know we can get there.
That's great. I mean, look, I know pre-pandemic, the world changed because people were working from home. I get all that, but it sounds like we're going in the right direction. Lastly, so are we ready for 250? And the second part to that question is, other cities are contemplating special fares What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we're working with the organizers on fair-related issues, right? So I'm not prepared to tell you exactly what that is, because the announcement is coming, but we are working with organizers on special fairs and things like that to support the events. But the short answer is, we've been preparing for this since it was proposed. I'm a soccer fan, so I was excited about this as soon as it became a thing. We want to do this. SEPTA does big things. We do big events, and we do them well. We did the Eagles Parade a couple seasons ago, and we brought 400,000 people in, and we took 400,000 people out, and we did it without incident, and we did it safely and efficiently. We can do big things, and we're excited to do this. And we have plans for enhanced service on the Broad Street line. We have plans for enhanced service on a couple of our bus routes that are going to serve the Fan Fest. We have plans for ambassadors to be out and about in the field, directing folks, guiding them back and forth through services. The difference between an event of this magnitude in the summer versus an Eagles Parade is people are going to be kind of everywhere all at once, going here and there, whereas in the Eagles Parade, it was everybody coming in and everybody going out. And that makes it much more challenging for us. But we're ready to meet that challenge, and we've been planning for this for several years, and it's even more intense now as we inch ever closer to it. We've already supported the flower show. That was kind of the kickoff of our 2026 schedule of events. We supported March Madness, Phillies opening day. As these events start to tick off, we're exercising that muscle to really kind of get ready for the big one when it starts in June. We're excited to provide that service, and I think we're ready.
Good to hear.
Thank you very much. I also want to acknowledge the presence, I didn't see him earlier, Michael Carroll, who's the head of Otis, which is the key lead organization that brings everybody together when it comes to infrastructure, transportation, sustainability. And so always a pleasure to see you. We were just down at the Belleville District on the Lower South Plan with all the key institutions to talk about how Second Councilmanic District is a key part of regional growth as we move forward. The City of Philadelphia in partnership with our mayor. So it's always good to see you, Mike. At this time, the chair recognizes Councilmember Lou Landau, the Minority Leader Kendra Brooks, and Councilmember Cindy Baz.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you for being here. Yay, SEPTA. Quick follow-up, I heard that Councilmember Driscoll already asked, but my most recent time of riding SEPTA was this past weekend. Pretty good with the cleanliness. I was pretty impressed, smelled good and everything. But underneath the clothespin did not at all. Smelled a lot like urine, and I was curious if SEPTA has any plans or would be willing to have some plans of down there, especially the businesses are not up and running right now, of having those new porta potty things, I forget what we're calling them, but having those down there so people could actually use a bathroom.
So we generally don't do public restrooms, but for specific locations, our biggest hubs. Part of the reason for that is those restrooms need ongoing attention, and we have dedicated cleaners to those restroom facilities because they are only in several different locations. Now, for big events, we have done portable toilets at some of the really big stuff that we've done, like for the Papal Visit, for example, some of those bigger events. But placing restrooms in a particular facility for us would be problematic for a number of ways, but certainly staffing it. But then one location versus another, folks will certainly, why not us? That we get into a kind of class envy kind of thing, is they got bathrooms and we don't. It would really stretch our cleaning and security resources.
So maybe you could talk to the city about
We can certainly do that.
There we go.
We can certainly do that.
Okay, thank you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Zero Fare, which I know that my colleague, Nicholas O'Rourke, has been championing as well. Apologies that I had to step out for a minute. I'm very relieved to see that the mayor put zero fare back into the budget this year. But with the $25 million allocation, what's the estimate on how many Philadelphians can be provided with zero fare cards? And is this an increase from last year's participants? Is it comparable to last year, or is it an increase?
So there's about 68,000 eligible recipients of the zero fare program. And that's 170% more than was in the original program. The original program, if you remember, was about 25,000. So there's been a significant uptick in the number of recipients of the zero fare program. And what we know from when we've put in these sorts of programs is it doesn't just give people who would ride anyway an opportunity to ride, but it gives people who maybe wouldn't ride because of that restriction. Now they might ride because they have a fare card in their hand. And that's true of zero fare, it's true of Key Advantage, and we've seen it, that it does induce new ridership for folks who now have something in their hand. So yes, it's been an exponential uptick in the number of recipients in the program due to the funding levels that have been provided.
If the program serves Philadelphians under 150% of the federal poverty rate, but that's something like 500,000 Philadelphians. So
it is limited. It is certainly limited. I mean, but we certainly appreciate the effort that council and the city is making towards getting more people into the program. But you're right, it doesn't address everyone.
What would it take to expand the program?
Well, it takes ongoing discussions with the city and figuring out what levels of funding would like to be provided.
Okay.
For every card that gets funded, we'll provide it. We have capacity. We can take those riders. We certainly have the capacity to take that. It's just a matter of deciding how we're going to fund it and at what level.
Okay. I want to ask also about student fares, which I've been asking almost every year. I introduced a resolution September 2024 to expand student fares to weekends and evenings. Currently, student fares are only valid from 5:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. weekdays, and for students who live 1.5 miles or more from a school, with a $10 charge if the student needs to take the regional rail. Students are more than just students now. They have to go to work, they go to their after-school programs, they go to all of the amazing job training programs that we have in the city, many of which are supported by City Council, and we want them to be able to access these things, and sometimes they need to come home after 8 o'clock. Sometimes their job is on their weekends. We don't want them taking, money out of their weekend paychecks to do this. So can you share any more insight on your openness and conversation with the school district in expanding student fare passes to more students and more times the week and year, and what can we do to help?
Sure. So first off, I'll say that SEPTA is very proud to be the transportation provider for the School District of Philadelphia. And we know that there's about 52,000 kids that are on SEPTA every single day. And we provide these passes. Essentially, the state, the Commonwealth provides the funding to the school district, who then pays SEPTA for the fare instruments. We're aware of the restrictions on the cards, and SEPTA is open to providing transportation any hour, any day, for anyone. And so what it would take to get there, and to truth be told, we've not had this specific conversation with the school district, but we certainly could initiate this. What it would take essentially is more funding because we give a discount on the card because of its restrictions. So if we open the card to more hours, we would, of course, raise the fare to the school district, essentially raising the fare to the Commonwealth. And then they would provide that funding to us, and we could unlock that card for any time, any day. Again, it comes back to what I said earlier. We have the capacity to introduce this, and we also know that by introducing students at an early age to use mass transit, to ride mass transit, they learn how to take care of themselves, how to move, how to transport themselves from here to there. They become much more responsible citizens. They become good citizens for us and for the future. We want to be part of that, and we're happy to do what it takes to get there. What it will take is funding for that program.
Okay, thank you. I'll hold my for the next round. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Chairman recognizes Councilman Kendra Brooks, Councilmember Cindy Bass, who's near and dear to SEPTA, and then Councilmember Dr. Nina Ahmed.
Thank you so much, Council President, and thank you, SEPTA, for coming out and taking our questions. My first question is SEPTA willing to engage in a strategic partnership with rideshare companies to help optimize service delivery for riders with accessibility needs?
The short answer is yes, we are. We are open to that idea. And we have engaged rideshare companies on this approach a few times over the years. In the early parts of the rideshare kind of phase, there were some federal restrictions on how we could use rideshares. There are still some federal hurdles we have to overcome that apply to our drivers because we are recipients of federal dollars, so our drivers are subject to some federal requirements such as drug and alcohol testing and so on. So we have to overcome some of those challenges, but yes, we are very much open. In fact, I would say we're more than open because we know that we have our own challenges in meeting the demand for our paratransit and our shared ride customers. So we have very limited resources for drivers and availability, and that does reveal itself in some of the customer dissatisfaction in the service we're providing. So we are open to engaging with TNCs to the extent possible and getting them to become part of the SEPTA system.
Oh, that's great news. My next question is about SEPTA Key Advantage. We think it's a great program, and it helps Philadelphians save money on transportation. It helps businesses lower costs, and it helps keep our buses, trains safer with increased ridership. I want to thank you for working with City Council to create and expand this program. Can you tell us about the participation levels in this program, and how has the Key Advantage participation changed over the past year, and how much about this? How about the preceding 3 years?
So Key Advantage started with a couple pilot companies, some of the bigger organizations in the region, and many of them have remained customers. And again, it comes down to, for us, it's providing transit to the organization, so they in turn provide that fare to their employees as an employment benefit. We have some really large partners as part of that, and there's a number of programs that engage in that, and I'm looking for what we have. So at the current participation levels, funding is about $22 million annually. So that's new revenues that we may not otherwise have. And again, it comes down to inducing ridership. What we've learned as we've engaged with our partners in this program is when someone has a fare card in their hand, they're much more likely to use it. And that puts more people on transit and fewer people on our roadways. We have some really big partners, Penn Medicine being one of them, who have been with us from the beginning. We have engaged with landlords to have them engage with renters. We are looking for some of the bigger partners. I've already spoken with folks at Temple University, for example, to try to bring them into the fold. Community College of Philadelphia, we've done a program with them for the West Philly campus. So there's a number of these institutions in Philly that have engaged with us and continue to engage with us to get them involved. So there's a lot to do there.
Do you have any ideas of how we can increase participation in the program? And to the thought of CCP, what is the partner with CCP, and does it include students, especially students that receive the Cato scholarship?
So the CCP relationship, we're both parties have been engaged in negotiations to figure out how to expand that partnership. I know it's been very public, but the truth of the matter is we have been speaking with Community College to try to expand their footprint in the program. How they engage, whether it's the full student population, because many of their students are part-time, so they're looking at what that means to them and how they can engage in that. But that's a decision that the community college will make, and we're in discussions with them now on how to help them arrive at a good decision.
Thank you so much.
Certainly.
Thank you very much. Chair recognizes Councilmember Cindy Bass and Councilmember Dr. Nina Ahmed, the Councilmember Anthony Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to, I had a couple of questions, but I wanted to start off to go back to Councilmember Kathy Gilmore Richardson's point. about the changes to SEPTA. Hello, how are you?
How are you,
Scott?
Councilmember?
Good to see you. But I wanted to go to her point about the changes to SEPTA, and I wanted to ask, and I'll ask specifically for those of us who grew up sort of like North Philly and South Philly, Councilmember Brooks, Council President Johnson, what was the line that ran up and down, the bus line that ran up and down Broad Street? What was that bus?
The C.
The C bus. Does anybody know what the bus that goes up and down Broad Street is now?
No.
No.
Yes, somebody knows.
And so, you know, the point I'm making here is that, you know, like, we still call it the C bus. You know, you change the name, you know, you change some of the scope of service on it. For most of us, it's kind of like, I'm going to catch the C bus and go down to South Philly or up to North Philly or whatever. Sure. And it remains. So we've spent a lot of money on these changes that a lot of Philadelphians are really just not, you know, have not embraced. So, and I'm someone who grew up in the city catching SEPTA. I know how to get to every part of the city thanks to SEPTA. I used to take the 48, the 33, the Route 60, the 54. You know, those were sort of like my North Philly lines. And so, you know, but because of those lines and SEPTA's work, I know the city so much better. Because again, like the council president, we didn't have a car. SEPTA was our car. So we have a lot of respect for the work that you do. Now, that being said, I do have some concern. In your conversation, you mentioned the funding crisis that threatened last year, SEPTA service cuts, fare increases, and the like, which really had all of us and the legislators in Harrisburg extremely nervous about what that was going to mean for our constituents. But then, you know, there was this you know, article I came across in the paper that we were giving away 5 properties in very desirable neighborhoods along the Chestnut Hill East and the Chestnut Hill West line to a developer for 99 years for $1. It was the first of its kind agreement, and it certainly should be the last of its kind. Also, I want to point out that another piece of real estate SEPTA owned was leased to a developer in Ambler, and that was just this year, and they're paying $402,500 per year with annual 3% increases for a total of $236 million going to SEPTA over 99 years. So help me understand, $236 million or $1? Like, help me understand. Help it make sense. Make
Sure.
it make sense.
Sure, I would love to do that. So the 2 examples are really, really vastly different. What we leased for $1 were the station buildings, not the whole property. The station still belongs to SEPTA.
Yes.
The station building, which in many cases will likely be transformed into some retail space, coffee shop,
Sure.
you know, food service place. So that is a much smaller investment for anyone than the property that you're speaking of out in Ambler, excuse me, or Conshohocken, where it's an entire parcel that will be developed into housing with a parking garage and maybe retail. So it is a little bit different in the approach that we took. So
I have no doubt that it's different, but at the same time, $1 for 5 properties is outrageous when you're asking us for money. It is outrageous that these kinds of conversations are even being had, and that SEPTA is having the financial cliff that, you know, threatens us all. For those of us who ride SEPTA now, who have ridden SEPTA and respect the work that you all are doing, for those of us who care about public transportation, it is really quite outrageous that SEPTA would give away this very valuable property on a very desirable line, the Chestnut Hill East and the Chestnut Hill West. It is just, I just really cannot make sense of what has happened here.
I understand. I certainly understand your position, but what I will say is we tried to lease those properties individually, and we went through a bid process that wound up at $1. These properties, I'm sorry.
And don't want to cut you off, but I would say this, in saying that you went through a bid process, we were never contacted. So I don't know who you know, like if you needed some help or, you know, we're looking for some minority participation. Because the other thing I want to mention is that there is no minority participation on these properties. And that is as well shameful when you look at the overall ridership that supports SEPTA day to day.
And certainly the first time that you and I spoke about this, that was one of your chief concerns, is we had not engaged you well enough. And I acknowledge that is probably the case. So we have done a much better job on the Germantown property, for example, that I know we've engaged you in your office a great deal, and you've given us great feedback on that. So we are learning from that lesson that you pointed out to us on how better to engage with council, how better to engage with your teams and the communities. So yes, certainly there was, we could have done much better in our communications with you during that process.
Okay. That doesn't fix it.
Understood.
And as I understand it in our research, these were properties from the original, before it was SEPTA, it was PTC?
Probably long before. It's railroad property, so it's likely Pennsylvania Railroad or Reading Railroad.
And when it was PTC,
Yep.
you know, part of the conversation that we've been advised of is that the leasing of these properties, there is some question as to the legality of the leasing of the properties because they are actually PTC properties that were leased to SEPTA. So there is a question as to if these properties could be sublet. And so that's a conversation that we will have.
Okay.
But I just think, you know, like the optics of this really look horrific for SEPTA. And again, we're out here selling this product, and the product is, if you're connected, you can get 5 properties for $1 for 100 years. Sounds great if you're in the loop, if you're on the end. But for most of us, you know, like this looks like, you know, somebody got a hookup. Plain and simple, somebody got a hookup. And as we're talking about trying to put more money into programs like Zero Fare, you know, that's where that money comes from. That's where we get those dollars from. So I know you get it. I know you understand exactly where I'm coming from because, again, we have had that conversation before. 2 other things I wanted to mention just briefly, and that is that SEPTA operators, I don't know if you know this or not, bus operators are being blamed for tickets that if people are in bus lanes and the bus automatically gets, you know, gives them a ticket, then the operator is assumed to have done something, signaled them, somehow caused that ticket to happen. So, you know, we already have, you know, some concern about keeping our operators safe. That's something I think that SEPTA really needs to look into. And the other thing really quickly was I was glad to hear you say that you want clean stations. You want your stations to be clean at all times. It shouldn't matter if somebody's dropping by or whatever. The station really just should be clean. You know, because we had this conversation previously with a general manager who said, well, we're doing the best we can. No, that's the wrong answer. You know, the stations were pretty dirty. I'm glad to hear you say that. I do have a concern about the lack of bathrooms in the subway system. I can't remember who mentioned that. Was it? Okay, okay. My colleague, Councilmember Landau, because I have a connection with SEPTA in the subway system. And as an example, the elevator at the North Philadelphia station, which is Broad and Lehigh, is constantly broken. And it's broken because people are using it as a restroom. And so SEPTA needs to figure out how to get restrooms in the stations. It's really just that simple. I know it's probably a whole lot more expensive to send out a technician to fix the mechanics on an elevator that are eroding because someone is urinating constantly, you know, in the elevator system. So if SEPTA could figure out how to make that happen, I think in the long run, it's actually going to save you all some money on those kinds of repairs. So thank you, Mr. President. That's my question.
Thank you very much. Chair recognizes Councilman Dr. Nina Ahmed, then Councilman Dr. Anthony Phillips, then Councilman Ketty Lozada, then Mr. O'Rourke.
Thank you, Council President. Good morning still, almost. Good to see you all. Thank you for all the work you do. And once again, we recognize Wendy, who keeps us plugged in. I wanted to go back to 2021. I know you were not in this position, but you were in SEPTA, as was many of you. And there was that horrific sexual assault that happened on a train between here and Upper Darby to 69th Terminal. I was not elected at that time. I was the president of the National Organization for Women, the Pennsylvania chapter, and we had a rally that got on the train and went from there to Upper Darby to really talk about lack of security, lack of issues. So I wanted to, there were some demands made then, and I just wanted to see what the follow-up was around that. And mainly they were about monitoring those cameras with live people. Right. And they had cameras then, but nobody saw what was going on and could have stopped it much earlier. So one was about live monitoring of cameras on public transport, more trained social services personnel, which got discussed, I believe, already, and education about for customers and passengers what to do and have clear messaging around that on our trains and subways and buses. And so that's one part of the question. The second part is we're embarking on a human trafficking campaign of awareness and prevention. The RFP has gone out. I wanted to know what SEPTA was doing around this issue in this year and then to continue going forward. So those are my two main questions.
Yes, so to go back on some of those, some of the demands that you mentioned, we didn't at the time, but have since successfully achieved the ability to have live look-in on all of our trains. So that technology was introduced a couple of years ago, and on every shift, as long as trains are running, I have a civilian team of folks that are watching these trains. So we've achieved that. That has actually resulted in a lot of crime reduction for us. The work that they're doing is phenomenal. So we've seen that success. In terms of human trafficking, a couple years ago, we spent some time working with the Department of Transportation on the creation of a training block for frontline staff. That was achieved through all frontline employees at the time that we delivered that a couple years ago. But part of the work that we did on that was developing a training block for new employees. So now every new employee that comes into SEPTA gets a block, sort of how to recognize signs of human trafficking, how to report it, things like that. So everybody touches every frontline staff that works at SEPTA. I would tell you specifically for this year, for the events of 2026, that we are working on sort of a refreshing awareness campaign. So the police department is putting together sort of training bulletins for our staff. And starting in May, we're going to start rolling out every week a new training bulletin for staff. And it's going to be on things like recognizing suspicious behavior, how to recognize it and report those things. Human trafficking is going to be a topic for that. So the goal is, as we move up into the bulk of these events, refreshing our employee staff with how to recognize these things and how to report them.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to hear about that. I wanted to know, since you have this live monitoring, have you been actually able to intercept and stop? What's the data around having that? And also with the training, since you've had it for a while, how do you follow up to see how effective it's being or not, and where's data around that?
Yeah, I don't know if we have specific data on attributing arrests to it. I have examples, of many times that our live monitoring team, our virtual patrol team, is seeing incidents, both serious in nature and non-serious. So they're directing police, all day long, essentially. If I could describe the workflow, right? Like, they'll see an incident that requires police attention, they'll snap a picture, and within a minute, that's in the hands of every police officer in the field. And this is going on all day long, where pictures are going out to our team. That it's been instrumental in some of the positive statistics that we've referenced.
I so deeply appreciate that. The reason I ask this and ask for data is to tell our public that this is happening and you are doing this proactively and you're making it safer. People don't know this. It's a good thing in one way that you can catch people doing bad things, but I think you would increase ridership if people knew you were so proactive about this and making sure, and then tracking it. Without tracking, I'm just taking your word, I don't disbelieve you, but I think for people to know, there should be a dashboard of some sort that SEPTA should have that says this is what security looks like on SEPTA. And we could have dashboards for other items that SEPTA grapples with. But that's a public-facing kind of tool that could help your ridership, help so many things it could do. So I think we need to be proactive in telling our communities, our constituents, that the money we're investing in you is, bearing fruit. And they need to see that. People need to see their tax dollars being used appropriately. So I thank you for the work. I just need to advertise and amplify it and have data to actually back up what you're saying, because I'm a scientist. So I will take your word, but I need trust but verify. So I would appreciate that. Thank you so much, Council President.
Yeah, I want to echo those sentiments. Again, maybe some type of SEPTA safety public campaign. And again, one, it builds the confidence up of the public and the ridership, but also, again, one of the key conversations, and my members can testify, when we were meeting with the senators up in Harrisburg, they were saying, well, it's not safe, we live in the county, it's not safe there. And we're saying, but our numbers tell us otherwise, but the onus is on us to create that narrative that, no, here's the facts that we are making progress and we are safe in these areas. And to be quite frank, we should be even safer or cleaner than regional rail, right? In terms of the level of service that we're providing to the inner city ridership, similar to folks that take these trains to go out into the counties when they're leaving Philadelphia, going back to their counties where they live at. And so that would be our expectation, to see some type of campaign when you come next year. They say, here's how we're telling the SEPTA story. So with that being said, the chair recognizes Councilmember Dr. Anthony Phillips, then Councilman Kelsey Lozada, Nicholas O'Rourke, Jim Hardy, then Jamie Gaultier.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to say thank you to Scott for his leadership. You have been truly yourself and in this role, and I think it's been really telling. We want to thank you for what you're doing to bring SEPTA to life. I just have a couple of questions. So along the lines of what I've been working on here in the city and all of our budget hearings, I'm focused on helping SEPTA become even more responsive when it comes to our neighbors. Responsive government when it comes to SEPTA is important as well. So first question that I have is around the bus operators. They're your primary concern. Our bus operators, all of our train operators, they're our primary concern. What is the standard operating procedure for a bus operator or a train operator if they're experiencing some level of conflict or danger that's happening? Is there, when the police, are they readily available, or is it like they may not get there until moments later? What is the rapid response when it comes to something?
So first and foremost, we train all of our frontline staff in de-escalation. So our operators are all trained to de-escalate a potential conflict, understanding, of course, that the de-escalation techniques only take you but so far. In the event that there is an incident, or let's say before an incident occurs, if the operator feels that they are in jeopardy, they have a two-way radio aboard the bus. They also have a silent alarm aboard the bus that they can trigger a response. That response in the city of Philadelphia is generally under 4 minutes for a police response for a crime or a violent offense. That's not just take into account where our police are, because the city of Philadelphia will respond to those sorts of events as well, and they are usually more readily accessible to the bus, depending on where it is. So that happens rather quickly. In many cases, when there is a violent offense that occurs on a bus where a passenger strikes an operator or something to that effect, almost every single time, our transit police are making an arrest in that case. It may not happen at the scene, but it'll happen shortly thereafter.
What about just not the violent ones? What about the nuisance person, the person who's just being a nuisance?
Sure.
You know, they're loud, they're causing, disturbances among the riders. I mean, are they asked to just de-escalate that, or are they asked to have SEPTA police come out at that moment? Because they're technically not public safety officers.
Sure, it varies depending on what's happening. So let's assume it's a nuisance. Somebody's, I don't know, playing loud music on the vehicle, and the operator is instructed that if it's safe to do so, just have that patron kind of turn the music down or off or whatever, or use headphones or whatever the ask is. Do it politely, do it professionally. If it's not safe to do so, then they can request help. They can call on the radio to our control center and say, I have a passenger who's causing a disturbance, they're doing this. And then the control center will make the call in concert with the transit police, who sit side by side with them. Is this a police issue or is this a supervisor issue? Either or both can be summoned, and they will be summoned in a moment's notice from the control center once the report is made. But all that decision-making happens in our central control center, which is at our headquarters.
Great. And lastly, because I just heard a bell, a lot of our residents in the 9th District are concerned about the fact that it seems like every so often there is a potential strike looming. They would love for leadership to work even better with the union so that we don't have these potential strikes. Is there somewhere in the budget where you're accounting for maybe reserve funds for salary increases, future salary increases for our union, workers that work at SEPTA, so we can stop, or whatever they demand? It'd be nice if that is your more hand step, lock, and they can get not a year contract, but they can get multiple years that they're agreeing upon, so it's not always a threat, potentially, of us not cooperating.
Sure. So yes, the answer is yes. Every year when we go into our budget, presuming that there is it's a contract year where we know we're going to negotiate a contract, we will establish a budget of what we expect to incur in salary increases for the union into that budget. And that's how we approach negotiations.
And is that lockstep with the union, where the union feels, when you make those budget decisions?
Certainly the union sometimes believes it's not enough, so that's part of negotiations.
Right.
But what I will say, though, is I'm very pleased to say that we have not had a disruption since 2016, so almost 10 years since the last work stoppage. And that's something that SEPTA couldn't say for a long time. We were seeing work stoppages every 3 years. Now, getting to a multi-year contract is my goal as well, and I know it's also the TWU's president's goal. He and I meet often and discuss. We don't just wait for contract cycles to roll around. He and I have regular discussions and ongoing discussions about how we can improve things here at the organization. So I know it's his desire as well as mine to get a multi-year contract done. We need stabilized funding in order to reach that agreement, which is why we were able to do a 2-year deal this time, because we knew we had 2 years of stable funding in order to get that done.
No, thank you. Thanks, Council President. I just want to offer that. I've been hearing about some of the pensions of some of the retirees are not increasing in this it is growing, rapidly changing economic world. And those things should be considered. And if you need to ask us, right, to help you get closer to there, I think a lot of us would be in favor of that. I know I would. And then I just had the quick suggestion of, you have a lot of events and programs. One of the things that I think could be helpful is if you had each one of your buses and train lines, an area where there could be flyers that could be put in, posted up, where and every operator says, hey, take a flyer, there's a meeting coming up, here's a change that's happening to the line. That way we can really account for the fact that the people who normally ride the bus or the train are getting that information. I think that would be really helpful. I mean, I don't think that's a big cost to put something like that a little thing to stick onto something so people get the information about upcoming events. Because we had a meeting in Simons the other day, people were like, we didn't know. I'm like, okay, what is SEPTA doing when it comes to advertisement? But I have other questions, but that's all I have for now in terms of, my comments and questions. I do want to say that Verbena Avenue, if you could take note, in our district is being talked about a lot of times around cleaning and quality of life issues. We constantly get questions about maintenance and cleaning around that area. Is there something you could do on that, or just wanted to make sure?
I can't speak specifically to that area, but I mean, cleaning and security is kind of the focus. It's our entire focus at this moment. But what we can do is I can go back and look at that specific.
Can I get a point of information, please? What is the size of your cleaning operation?
So the cleaning operation is in excess of about 700 staff, and that's to clean stations, facilities, and vehicles. Each vehicle fleet has its own dedicated cleaning staff.
You said 700?
Yes, that's correct. And that's just the custodial staff. Then there are supervisors and managers and things like that that oversee that. But 700, and that has been a dramatic increase since COVID. When we entered 2020, for example, there were only 180 cleaners dedicated to the subways, the Market Frankford line, the Broad Street line. That's about 350 now. So we've really dramatically increased the cleaning ranks.
Yeah, maybe they could work with Carlton Williams, Council President.
Yeah, I was thinking cleaning green along the SEPTA stations, I think. And we all rowing in the same direction on this issue. I think part of this is, perception of people's experience, right?
Sure.
And I know you're doing work, you say 700 people, right? But I think, how do you measure your impact, right? And I know we have a long subway and L system, right? But really, I would look at how often that those teams are power washing the station as well as the subway cars. And I guess because of some of the quality of life issues that we're dealing with, particularly along the Broad Street line, but definitely that Frankfurt L line, right? And we know what the issues are around Kensington and so forth, that we're just stepping up and ramping up those efforts, right? And then again, when you talk about PR, I will have some type of clean and green SEPTA initiatives. Again, that boosts morale, the ridership that something is being done. And again, it also arms us when we go to Harrisburg and they say, well, this was going on in Philadelphia. And we say, oh no, here's the positive things that are taking place and why we're advocating for additional SEPTA funding. And so those are just some of the things to think about. And we're here to be partners in this because we have family members that take SEPTA day in and day out. We have friends that take SEPTA day in and day out. My wife takes SEPTA, it's 17 bus, right? Yeah, she takes the 17 bus, and so, I want for her what I want for myself. The same thing I would want for my constituents and family members as well. So we're a partner in this as well. So the chair recognizes Councilman Ketty Lazada, the Nicholas O'Rourke, them Jim Harity, Jamie Gaultier.
Good morning. Thank you for being with us this morning. I guess I'm a bit frustrated because I hear what you're saying, but the realities of the folks in my district who take SEPTA, who rely on SEPTA, whose only option is SEPTA, is painfully different. And so I've sat here budget season after budget season, and we're having the same conversation. And so I guess my question first, let me start with a comment first, and that is that in order for you to create the next generation of transit riders, it is not going to take funding. It is going to take a safe experience. I see a sign back there that says, we won't get there without SEPTA. But we're not going to get anywhere if we're not safe, right? And so I'm extremely frustrated around the safety aspect and the cleanliness of our system. And my phone is blowing up because I have a direct relationship with the people that I represent in the 7th Councilmatic District, many of whose only option is SEPTA. And for them to tell me that they are using pipes on the train, for them to tell me that they have to move from train carts to train carts 3 and 4 times to get from Kensington and Allegheny to 15th and Market is a problem, right? For them to tell me that people are shooting up on the trains, for them to tell me that they have to stand the entire ride because there is a problem on the system that they report on their app and is not responded to is a problem. We cannot continue to sit here and ask for transit funding if we're not creating a safe experience for everyday riders. We just can't, right? There are people that meet around quality of life in Kensington every day. Chief Nestel, what is your relationship with Deputy Commissioner Rosario?
We have a good relationship. Our staff meets weekly on the Kensington group. He has my number, I have his. We picked up the phone and talked to each other on issues over the years, and we have a good working relationship, I would describe.
I find that I asked him the same question. He said, we really don't have one. And so there's a lack of communication. When Nestel was here, there was weekly meetings. People were talking every day. People were present. They were a part of the solution. We need to get there. I don't know what needs to change, but you both should be saying, we have a daily conversation. We know exactly what is happening around outreach. We have a relationship and are communicating with DBH, IDS, and CBH and all of those outreach providers on the ground every day to make sure that when people get on our transit system, they are having a safe experience. It has to happen. It has to happen. There's no reason why I'm sending Wendy photos of 5, 6 police officers at SEPTA stations when there are people who are living unsheltered inside of your spaces. No reason for that. There's no reason for that. There's no reason why I should be driving around at any time of the day and there's open fires inside of your stations. No reason for that. Because you guys apparently have cameras, right? So somebody should be monitoring your cameras to see that there's an open fire inside of your structure. We can't talk about increasing fares or cutting routes and still ask people to take our transportation system when we are not doing for people. And I want to be a supporter of SEPTA. I know that it's many in my community's only option. But it is not acceptable, and it is not fair to Wendy to receive text messages on Sunday, on Friday, on Monday, on Wednesday. It is not fair. Because I know if I'm blowing up her phone, there's 17 other members that are blowing up her phone. And I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for fairness in response. We know what's happening in Kensington. We know. And so I am asking for you all to figure out what the plan of action is going to be as it relates to meeting on a daily basis, if necessary, at the beginning until we stabilize the situation from Tioga all the way down to Burke Station, because it's when apparently things change, and give my riders in my community the same attention that you give other neighborhoods. That's what I'm asking for, so that we can get there with SEPTA.
We will do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Nicholas O'Rourke, then Councilman Jim Harity, and then Gautier.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being with the afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. It is very possible that not everyone understands, so I want to highlight the amazing work that y'all are doing with a shoestring budget. We all hear when things go wrong. We have no qualms about pointing it out, but I just want to make sure everybody knows on record how much is going right. In 2024, SEPTA was ranked as the most efficient transit agency in the country. It is able to provide each ride at almost half the cost, as I understand it, than Boston or Chicago. In 2024, SEPTA saw a 33% drop in crime. That is the largest, I think, the single largest one-year decline in the history of this particular transit system. SEPTA reported its highest ever customer satisfaction scores last year. And on top of that, by 2031, SEPTA will be rolling out, as you've already spoken to, Mr. Sauer, completely new L cars, trolley cars, a completely new and modern system. It is high time, I believe, that we recognize that we can, and if we work together, if we continue to row in the right direction together, in the same direction, we'll have what any world-class city requires, and that is a world-class transit system that is affordable, that is clean, that is consistent, that is safe, that is expansive. And we'll all need to work together more effectively because we all have a stake in this. SEPTA, the city, the state, the private sector even. I've had several conversations about that. It's clear to me, President Sauer, that the SEPTA organization is doing its job on those particular points that we've raised. But my question for you is, what can the city do to make that job easier?
Well, certainly I appreciate that. I think I'm hard pressed to come up with an answer more than what you've all have done. I mean, committing the dollars that you are considering to commit to SEPTA is an important step for us. It virtually unlocks $1 billion from the state and displays the commitment that the city of Philadelphia has towards transit in this region. The advocacy that you all did last year in Harrisburg, advocating on our behalf, I mean, that really meant something. It didn't, certainly not just to SEPTA, but to all your constituents. And then, of course, the new commitment now to the Zero Fare program, the Key Advantage program. The city of Philadelphia is our largest customer, not just geographically, but the city of Philadelphia administration is our largest customer on the Key Advantage program and the commitment to Zero Fare, the school district, all those commitments. That's the information I take to our institutions for Key Advantage and say, look what the city is committed. Look what the school district is committed to. We need your commitment now. So that continued advocacy, helping us push these institutions, these large businesses towards SEPTA, that would be a big help to us. That is going to be my mission for the next year, is to get out and sell Key Advantage to the largest employers of the region, to get them bought in to transit as part of their budgets and part of their commitment to the region.
In that same line, or at least kind of in that same theme, I introduced, as you know, the Transit Access Fund. More than a year ago at this point, some legislation that we introduced last year. The Transit Access Fund would dedicate, just as a reminder, 0.5%, a half of a percentage of the general fund that's equal to the Housing Trust Fund, which also takes out 0.5% of the general fund, to permanently fund the Zero Fare program and to provide matching grants to small employers to participate in SEPTA's Key Advantage program, bringing transit passes to more employees citywide. We all know how critical the Zero Fare program is. We've talked about it already today, but like Member Brooks lifted up, I kind of want to talk more about the Key Advantage program. On the question and the hope of expanding revenue, how important are low-income ridership programs like Zero Fare and Key Advantage in actually realizing that?
I mean, it's important for that reason, of course. I mean, certainly the ridership, I mean, there are low-income residents that are going to try to ride anyway, but there are also low-income residents who see maybe that fare as a barrier to riding. So that low-income fare reduces that barrier, gives those folks an opportunity to ride. That certainly helps us with revenues. That's revenue that we didn't have. But what it also does for us is it now lessens the burden on that low-income rider to find other ways to try to ride. And I'm speaking specifically of fare evasion. We certainly don't want to make anyone's life more difficult. Fare evasion is a problem for us. It costs us millions of dollars every year. But giving that low-income rider the ability to ride, the ability to pay a fare, and also reduces our interaction with our police department, potentially with that low-income rider. So it reduces all sorts of friction and just opens the door to jobs and education and things that maybe that customer wouldn't have access to without that low-income
Let's
fare.
say in a dream world, the Transit Access Fund passes. How impactful would city-funded matching grants be to leverage private investment in SEPTA? And I think also how might more robust private investment, which I know that you talked about leveraging, help our negotiating position in Harrisburg next year?
Right. I mean, that's part of our goal, and part of what Council President probably heard in his feedback from the Senate last year is we want more P3 investment in transit. We want that too. Many of the real estate transactions we're doing today is to encourage P3 investment, to get people investing in the properties around transit so that in turn induces ridership. Advertising and marketing, station naming rights, all those things feed into our non-fare box revenue and allows us to keep costs down, allows us to generate more revenue on our own, which then in turn reduces the obligation that may or may not be needed by government. So there's lots of things that all this feeds into the wheel and makes SEPTA run. But generating our own revenues outside of what goes into the fare box is very important for our survival and our future.
All right, well, the bell was wearing me out a couple times, so I'll put a bow on this and just say that I echo, honestly, and you know I am a supporter and want to, it is essential for SEPTA to be top tier, right? We deserve that, and we're a world-class city, so we need to have, that has to be in place. And also, I echo the sentiments of my colleagues that have frustrations around cleanliness. And I shared this with Ms. Wendy on our call. Perception is the ultimate reality. Not necessarily the ultimate truth, but it is ultimate reality. Even if you haven't rode SEPTA, you probably would be discouraged from riding if you hear the stories of what our experiences have been, what anybody's experience has been, as it relates going into some of these stations and seeing the condition that they're in. I'm encouraged to hear about the uptick from 100 to 700 workers that are focused on cleaning. And also, if staffing up doesn't get the job done, then maybe we have to double what maintenance looks like on a regular basis. Whatever the current program is in terms of maintaining cleanliness, then we have to look at that. How do we double that to make sure that we're not just hoping to fall into cleanliness, but it is top priority in the same way that we should be prioritizing infrastructure. This is infrastructure upkeep. I don't want to make us to pretend that we're New York. We are our own city. And also, you mentioned like sometimes hearing frustrations about people talking about what they've seen in Asia. I'm concerned because the last couple of years we have seen, whether it's in New York or here, when torrential downpour comes as a result of climate change, what have you, you got water coming through the walls of the train station. It's really challenging when you see videos of cities and towns whose names I can't currently pronounce in China, where you got trains going through houses and buildings and stuff like that, and it's clean as a whistle. If the water does come down, you can see the fish flying. So I think we really need to prioritize, not just kind of as an aside, but as top tier focus, how we actually realize clean stations in the city of Philadelphia, because we are a world-class city, and we won't stop having huge events. And so I think it's particularly important. So yes, I will continue to fight to make sure that you have funding to be able to do that. But if there's some way that we can reorient to make this a number one priority as well, I think that would be in our best interest. And in conclusion, I'll just say I appreciated Member Phillips lifting up what I think is often overlooked, which is the idea around free transit. You know, there's a culture in professional spaces, I think, that permeates, that normalizes, standardizes short-sightedness and narrow-mindedness, and almost de-incentivizes imagination. Everything that we get a chance to experience in this city comes first from someone's vision. And I think if we can imagine possibilities, let's not cut ourselves off at the hip. It would be good if we had the perfect transit system. It would be good if everyone had access to that and be able to get around. We should not, I think, fall back on that, and say, think because we have a grasp on the numbers or what have you, that we can't do these incredible, dare I say, utopic things. We should see that as a vision, aim for it. As they say, shoot for the stars, sometimes you'll land on the moon. Anyways, thank you, Mr. President, for the time.
Councilmember Jim Harity, and then we'll wrap up this first round with Councilman Jamie Gautier.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you both for your service. Going to get right into it just for the sake of time, and apologize if, one of the things of going next to last is that sometimes your questions have already been asked. SEPTA plans on rolling out the Bus Revolution redesign in phases starting this August, which eliminates 18 routes. The first phase, what criteria determine what routes were cut and how equitability will be remaining routes be? How equitable will remaining routes be to low-income neighbors? SEPTA's FY27 budget relies on a second and final year of $394 million PennDOT capital transfer to cover operations. What is SEPTA's plan to fund in FY 2028 and beyond? And finally, SEPTA's 2027 plan relies on borrowing $4.3 billion over 12 years to fully fund and replace the Broad Street line cars. What is the plan of replacement if those cars fail before the replacements are funded?
Okay, I think I have them all. So let me start with the bus network. So part of the criteria, as we looked at the bus network, and this process, of course, started several years ago, the goal of the bus network was to give more opportunity to more people in a shorter amount of time. In other words, can I get you from where you begin your trip to where you want to end your trip as efficiently as we can in the shortest amount of time? So that's how it all started. As part of this, as we kind of went through and identified specifically which routes would be affected, which routes would remove service, which routes would get service, that all goes through an equity analysis. And as part of the annual service plan presentation that's happening today, we are presenting this implementation phase, this phase one, that's going to show what's affected and how it's been affected, and as part of that equity analysis. And I just happen to have a couple numbers I could share with you. What we're happy to say is that today we have 8 routes that are considered high frequency, fewer than 15 minutes or less, 7 days a week. That number's going to almost triple. We're going to be at 29. So actually it is going to triple. It's going to almost 4 times. That's going to be at 29 once the full network gets done. But as far as the equity analysis is concerned, we're showing now that this annual service plan that we're presenting today is going to show an increase in 660 revenue hours across the network. That includes an increase in minority routes and a decrease in non-minority routes. So essentially, we're showing through this analysis that the system becomes even more equitable. So that is a pleasant change that we're going to show to our customers. We tend to focus on what the system is not going to have instead of what it will have. We are going to add frequency to routes that are our highest ridership routes. We're going to add connections where connections didn't exist before, and make them, when you connect 2 frequent routes together, it makes the whole trip easier than one infrequent route on a winding route. So for all those reasons makes the bus network meaningful. Now I also realize that your constituents probably like their bus route, and they like that stop outside of my house. So we are trying to meet people where they live and talk to them about what their needs truly are and try to find a good solution. And that's part of the engagement. And that's why we're taking this on a phase-by-phase approach to make sure that we're not doing anything that's too radical that we're doing today, and then 2 years from now it gets implemented, and then we have a whole lot of new people in the room that maybe didn't hear that initial analysis. So that was thing one. So the other part was the fiscal 28 capital program, I think, fiscal 28 and beyond. So our capital funding is just like our operating funding. We have a need, a big one. We deferred or descoped 44 projects at the start of last fiscal year, the current fiscal year actually, and we had to do that because we had to shave $2 billion out of our 12-year program. That was for a variety of reasons: hyperinflation, low funding, increased costs in all the projects that we did. So what we need is a comprehensive solution to funding. We need something that addresses both our operating needs and our capital needs. The only way we're gonna make a dent in our $10 billion backlog is to start spending and improving the system at a much higher rate than what we're doing today. So that's gonna take funding. There's a whole slew of ideas out there on how to accomplish that, either from the state or from local sources. You know, we give our needs, we give to the experts like you who are going to figure out how best to proceed on this. But we are going to have a capital need, and it's only going to get worse over the years, and we're going to have to go into more and more debt to support the program, which is the $4.3 billion that we referenced earlier. So we're trying to make inroads. We've moved some projects around in the program to try to meet the needs of our constituents, to try to meet the needs of our riders, from station accessibility to new rail vehicles to new buses. We got new buses back in the program this year when we thought we might have to defer them for a couple years. These are really tough decisions that we're making on a very limited budget. There's things that we can do to meet Councilmember O'Rourke's vision of shooting for the stars. We want to hit those stars too, but there are funding needs. We can certainly do better internally in how we execute, but there are funding needs that we just can't escape. And I think that addresses the $4.3 billion. Oh, I think the last question was, how are we going to make the rail cars last? That is certainly a concern. I think we made really good progress in getting the Silverliner 4 fleet back, and we have a plan going forward to do more intense overhauls of the 4s to try to get the last 10 years out of them. Our Market Frankford line cars are also going through we took the lessons that we learned from the Silverliners and have now applied them to the Market Frankford line cars and the Broad Street line cars to try to learn, what are these components that were built 40 years ago that now we have to pay a little more attention to. They weren't in the maintenance and overhaul schedule because the builder called that a life cycle component, right? That's gonna last the life of the car. Well, the life of the car as they knew it is not the life of the car that we need. So now we're learning from that process that we have to pay attention to some components that maybe weren't in the original maintenance schedule.
Thank you. Thank you, Council President. Thank you very much. And wrapping up this round is Councilmember Jamie Gautier.
Thank you, Council President. Good afternoon, General Manager Sauer, and thank you to you and Wendy, one of your newest hires, Siani, who served for many years in the 3rd District Council office, and your entire team for everything that you do to keep Philadelphia moving on a daily basis. I am very grateful to represent a district that is served so well by SEPTA. We are the only council district where a majority of residents do not drive to work. And so I recognize how SEPTA keeps not just West and Southwest Philly moving, but the entire Southeastern Pennsylvania region. And I wish that more of our leaders, especially in Harrisburg, would recognize that if SEPTA stops, so does Pennsylvania's economy. And from my vantage point, and I know my colleagues will as well, we'll continue to advocate until people really get this point and fund SEPTA appropriately. A few months ago, we were meeting pretty frequently about the emergency extended trolley tunnel closure that started in the fall. And I just have some questions about where things stand currently. So SEPTA is still closing the trolley tunnel for 7 hours every night, which significantly harms many of my constituents. We have not had normal trolley operations since November, and now it's mid-April, especially as we gear up for this summer when we will welcome millions of visitors. Not having the trolley tunnel fully operational is going to keep tourists out of West and Southwest Philly, denying our small businesses the same economic opportunities as their peers in other parts of the city. And it will be harder for my constituents to get to the events taking place across our city. And so can you tell me what's the timeline for getting the tunnel open 24/7 again? And related, why have the temporary shelters been removed from 40th and Market, given that they are still needed every night?
All right, so thank you for that. So yes, and we certainly appreciate the support that you gave and the help that you gave us during those difficult months when the trolley was closed every day, all day. So what I'm pleased to report that we have submitted our plan to reopen the tunnel in the evenings to our state safety oversight. We're awaiting their feedback. I'm optimistic we can have this tunnel open by the end of the month and be able to run 24-hour service back in the trolley tunnel. What we've seen over the last several months, and we reopened the trolley tunnel on a limited basis starting in January 12th, I believe it was. And so we spent that time, those 3 months, looking at the slider on the trolley, looking at the wire. Every night we were in the tunnel examining the wire, and what we've been able to find is that the changes we made, the adjustments we made to everything, is we're seeing back to normal results. Okay. So we didn't see any issues, which is why we started compiling a report a couple weeks ago to submit to our oversight. We're ready to reopen the tunnel. So like I said, by the end of the month, I think we should be back to normal.
Thank you so much. Can I get another question? Okay. I also wanted to ask what lessons SEPTA learned during this unexpected trolley emergency, and how will you improve how you get information out to community members about future closures or service disruptions? I'm hopeful that there's no trolley blitz this summer because of 2026, but even for the closure last year that we didn't expect, it took SEPTA over a month to get real information about the severity of the situation out to community members. And so we need better systems in place for the future. And I'd like for you to speak to what process changes you're making.
Mm-hmm. So that was the number one issue that we had to learn right away is we didn't really know what the severity was at first. And I think that absence of that knowledge really gave us pause to communicate, and that was a mistake. Okay. Even if we didn't know, it would have been better to tell people we didn't know, and that when we would know. So that was a number one lesson that we kind of took from it, and having those processes in place to communicate all types of incidents as they occur, especially if we know they're going to have that dramatic a service impact. So our communications team has a more robust approach to that need. The trolley blitz, there is no trolley blitz this summer. So we've put all of our construction activity on hiatus, for the events of the summer. So we're trying to make as minimal an impact construction and maintenance-wise as we can for the summer events. And the shelters, I'll get an answer for you on. I have to find out what happened to the shelters. I know we discussed that when we were talking about the trolley tunnel a couple months ago.
Okay, I thank you for everything that you and your team did to rectify this situation. It did take us a while to sort of get into gear. I am hopeful that we'll meet that end of the month deadline for the trolley tunnel opening. And, you know, a couple minutes ago, we were talking about having our service rival the regional rail. I have to notice that when you all had a disruption on the regional rail, you kind of moved heaven and earth, right? And so in my district where people don't just take the trolley because it's a nice thing. They take the trolley and the bus lines and the train because it's a necessary thing. I want to see the same level of urgency and prioritization for those riders too. And I look forward to your continued partnership. I also want to, we were talking about the SEPTA Key Advantage. I know that a few of the institutions in my district, I believe Penn and Drexel are participating, but I would love to sit down with any other university city institution that's not enrolled in the program and see if we can get them to participate.
That would be great. I appreciate that. Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Council President.
Thank you very much. Members, are you bringing SEPTA back for a brief second round, or you yes? Anybody else have questions before let me do it this way. We can finish this round with additional questions, and we'll break out one and come back at 2. Is that okay? And then we just won't do a second round, we'll just get it all out now. Okay, Chair recognizes Councilman Rue Landau, and then also Councilwoman Jamie Gauthier.
Thank you. Thank you again. I wanted to talk about data. I'm the chair of the Tech Committee. And first question is, what settings and oversight is there on SEPTA cameras that use AI tools? Does SEPTA have an AI policy or a governance board, or does it participate in the state or city's governance framework?
So I'll speak to the governance. So there is an AI policy in development. So we have limited AI applications today. They're mostly operations-based. We have some work to do internally to protect our internal data, to protect it from AI. So we have very limited usage in the back office, if you will. But we do have some AI usage on operations that are monitoring, say, trolley pole and pantograph interfaces with wire. We did pilot AI technology on weapons detection last year. That project didn't work for us, so we're not using that any longer. But we are using the BriefCam project?
Yeah, it's essentially a tool that helps us cull through hours and hours of video quicker, right? So we input some data on what we're looking for, and this system kind of runs through and goes through, cuts down the hours of time it takes to get information out.
What's it called?
BriefCam.
BriefCam, great. And thank you for all of that. And what's your policy for sharing data recorded by SEPTA cameras? What would you do if you received a request from an organization like DHS or ICE? Would you release the footage?
So we, as a government agency, we're subject to right-to-know laws, just like anyone else. And so a reasonable request from anyone could trigger release of video. When it comes to law enforcement, we certainly have partnerships with law enforcement to share video, depending on whether or not they identify it quick enough for us to get it. There are certain capabilities within the system that we have to meet. But yeah, when it comes to law enforcement, we have different memorandums of understanding with law enforcement to be able to share on a need.
Does the law enforcement agency have to have a subpoena in order for you to share your video?
Typically, no. I mean, we really only sharing video as it relates to criminal incidents that happen either on the highway or on it's really the only video request that we receive. We have a process. We have standard MOU with the agencies that we share videos with. So we enter into that beforehand, and then we have a process to go down. We have to cite the specific reason you're asking, criminal incident or whatever it is, and we would make a decision based on that.
I would suggest you talk to the PPD about their policy of when they're sharing any data or information with ICE. And the second thing is, has your staff been trained as to what to do if ICE officers are on your trains, your trolleys, the subways, or on the train platforms?
So if staff identifies law enforcement engaged in law enforcement activity, they report it. They report it through our control center. We get it to the police, our police department, who will engage. If law enforcement from any department are just riding the train as a passenger, that generally doesn't pique any interest from staff unless they see something developing. So that's typical.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Chair recognizes Councilman Jamie Gaultier, and Councilman Dr. Anthony Phillips will wrap us up. And we have a hard stop at 1, so.
Thank you. General Manager Sauer, I wanted you to speak on the outlook for trolley modernization in 2027. I think we know that the best way to cut down on frequent service disruptions is to implement modern, accessible trolley networks installed throughout West and Southwest Philadelphia. So can you speak a bit about that?
Sure. So trolley modernization is probably the single largest infrastructure and vehicle program we have. It's in excess of $6 billion total. It includes modern streetcars, which are already in design. It includes a new maintenance facility at 51st and Grays. It also includes level boarding platforms at all of our street stops. Accessible stations underground. Our 19th Street station, for example, will go to construction very soon. So we are making really good inroads to advance this program. We've been told by our streetcar manufacturer that we should see a half-car mock-up probably by the end of the year. So we'll be able to share that hopefully with you at that time. But we're still a couple years off from seeing actual streetcars on the line. But we're hopeful we can get the first pilot car in 2029 and then start to see production in 2031, somewhere in that name.
Is that a delay? I thought that we were going to see something in 27 in our area of the city.
It is a delay. There have been some design changes we had to make, after the fact. So we are working through that with our car builder. But the half-car mock-up is an exciting first step where customers and stakeholders can see for the first time what the car is going to look like. We're going through design process now for our T5 line, which is the former Route 36 trolley along Elmwood Avenue, for platforms and stations. The heavy maintenance facility is going through design right now, so we will start to see some work on that probably next year. So you're going to start to see things start to develop. We need to get our infrastructure straight on the T5 to receive the first pilot car, and that's the most important piece to be able to properly test that car.
And can you just quickly name what are the elements of the delay? Is it funding? Is it something else?
So certainly funding. The project is not fully funded. The whole program is not fully funded. We kind of refer to it as a program of projects because there's lots of projects going on. The car project, the maintenance facility project. We have to convert all the overhead wire to receive a pantograph now, much like what you see on regional rail. We have to do some work in the tunnel on all the stations, the accessibility. There's some track work we're going to have to do. So it really is a huge infrastructure project that has to happen. So there are still funding constraints. We are still funding the program, but the streetcars themselves are funded, and we have design work done for the projects that we're advancing.
Two you so much. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. And wrapping us up is Councilmember Phillips.
Thank you, Council President. I just have two last questions. I want to raise concerns about a long-standing capital project, particularly our Lawndale Station in Northeast. The project has been on the capital plan for years with proposed pedestrian safety improvements that are critically important to the surrounding community. Now we're hearing that the project may be delayed indefinitely. So what is the current status of the Lawndale Station project, and when can we make sure it's fully funded and get back on the capital projects list?
So the Lawndale project was part of the 44 projects that were deferred at the start of fiscal 26, the current fiscal year. That is essentially deferred until beyond that 12th year of this year's program. So 2038, so 2039 would be the first opportunity, unless there's a funding change, and then we can reintroduce some of those projects back into the program. But at the very least, at the very earliest, we would not see that project begin until 2039.
Okay, and this is because of the recent cuts and so forth that had to transpire.
The cuts to the capital program at the start of this year pushed that program out of the 12-year program.
Understand. Understood. And then lastly, for our policing, I am concerned from residents about the smoking that takes place, some of the situations that happen between fights with young people getting on and off the bus, and then the operators have to deal with that situation. Is there a standard operating procedure that is in place? If not, it should be in place, where there are officers that are literally riding around certain bus areas, not only at the drop-off, but even escorting the bus in some ways. Because just having police presence at major bus stops where you notice there are large crowds you got it in Northeast, you have in Alany, different areas that you could just be like, you know what, let's always just have a police presence, not just at the let-out of the school time, but also just during the actual ride, so we don't have to worry about safety in that regard.
So there is a group within the police department that focuses on bus routes and surface transportation. they typically get their assignments because of a number of things. So either operators at the depot level are kind of reporting to us recurring problems on a specific route. And so that will gain our attention and we'll put cops on those routes. Another way that we deploy those resources is through our Transit Watch app. So, getting word to your constituents to use that app repeatedly will generate a pattern for us. We'll see a specific route pop up more frequently for, say, smoking or whatever the problem is, and then we'll focus on that with that specific group. So,
And that's what I was saying with the marketing. If you put it on a bus, then you need to say, if you repeatedly say something's happening, multiple people repeat, this will increase our presence. Because a lot of people don't know that. They don't know that by having an organized group of people doing something, that doesn't, they just say, oh, SEPTA's not gonna do anything. They just deal with it, especially with the smoking and other things that happen on the bus. So I just want you to, don't wait, be proactive. It's like the speed cushion law. I didn't wait for someone to get hit, and we worked with the city on that. Mike Carroll and Carlton Williams and so forth, mostly Carlton, but I just wanted to say, we got it done before it happened. So I just want to make sure, all right?
Thank you. Well, we thank you for your time and testimony. You do hear loud and clear that members of council have an interest in public safety, and we support your efforts. So when you grab little man, little Tanisha on the side where they smoking weed, and they raising all type of havoc, I ain't nobody inside this body talking about why y'all addressing it that way. I'm for public safety. I'm for when my wife get on a train and she come home safe, or when my wife get on the bus, she get to come home safe, and so we share that sentiment. But also, we can also provide behavioral health services and outreach and wraparound services and support for those who are most in need. But we're your partners, though, in all seriousness, and whatever we can do to be supportive. I'm sure Wendy will keep us abreast of all things SEPTA, as well as she has been doing in terms of how we move forward and be supportive of your efforts. But thank you for your leadership and going. And I've been around for a little bit. I don't think I went to Harrisburg with a general manager walking through the halls of Harrisburg, working in partnership with the mayor, members in council. Well, that's the first time members of council have done that, but members of council to actually advocate together in a unified fashion. I don't remember a general manager doing that, and so that's a testament to your leadership for going up there and stating the case as to why we need permanent funding for mass transportation, and specifically SEPTA. Permanent. And so whatever that takes for us to get it done, I'm sure we will continue to work in that direction. Council will be at ease until 2 p.m.